Bonjour tout le monde. Aujourd'hui, c'est jeudi, le 15 février 2024. Hello, everyone. Today is Thursday, the 15th of February, 2024. And I don't know how long this video is going to roll. It is very early in the morning in Canada, and where I am, Eastern Standard Time. And yes, I have been up for hours because I'm an early riser. And I just finished listening to a live by David Charles Platt or Plate and Andreas Zertis, and I forget who the other guy's name was. It seemed pretty interesting. I would have loved to have been involved or part of that podcast discussing religion and astrotheosophy and stuff like that. They were getting into a little bit of that, but onwards. So I wanted to get into some news because I like to start all my videos with news, just to get it out of the way. Yesterday was Valentine's Day. Unfortunately, I don't have anyone that romanced me. You know, no dates, like none of that stuff. It is what it is. And so myself and a girlfriend were thinking about actually going on a road trip and just like leaving Canada, or at least leaving Ottawa for a while, because we're both very traditional. Not very traditional. Like I have sleeves, like I have tattoos, like I'm not like anyway, I'm not like extremely traditional conservative. Like I smoke pot. Like I don't think that being homosexual is a sin. All of that stuff, right? So like again, there's a little bit of controversy with my my beliefs and opinions, but I do believe that women should stay home to raise a family if that's the choice that they want to make, and that is an absolute like a sacrifice, but a noble sacrifice. And then, after that's done, like, obviously you could start a career, travel, do whatever the hell you want, you know what I mean? Or do the opposite of that, which is what I'm trying to do. I started with the career. I would love to have the family. But again, like I need to be romanced. I need people to like ask me on dates and stuff like that. And actually be willing to commit, be the provider, protector in the relationship. Like again, more of the traditional, typical things that interest people like us. So like we're looking at getting out of freaking Ottawa and either doing a road trip to like the more conservative provinces in Canada to find men there, or going to the US and where there's more conservative and or traditional men that are actually looking at settling down with women. Because like in Ottawa and in major cities in Canada, men are cheating, they're lying, not everyone, or they're already settled down in relationships. Okay, just to be clear, and probably for many years. And then because of porn, addictions, and video games, and like lockdowns and pandemic stuff still ongoing, and Tinder, like all these these websites were making it so easy for people to cheat. Women that are more traditional conservative don't want that in a relationship, right? Like and so it is what it is. People in general in cities, like men and women, tend to vote more liberal or democratic, and tend to have more like liberal hobbies or interests, activities, and more accepting of various different backgrounds and things like that, and not so quick to dismiss or judge people like people that are Republican or conservative often do. And again, there's pros and cons to both. But anyways, on to X, formerly known as Twitter. Just because there's me. Just because I was talking about carbon emissions a lot. I've shared graphs like this before, but this was another nice graph from 2021, and it shows the breakdown with China being the biggest contributor of carbon emissions internationally. Large part of that, like also with the US, is because they're actually the Americans are going to foreign people and foreign locations to get oil and exports and imports and stuff like that. So they're not counting that carbon emissions, even though they're the ones that are using the products, if that makes any sense, and benefiting from the carbon emissions that are being displayed in place in other areas. And like Canada, are like, right there, like for North America and Mexico, like we are not carbon emission emitters like other fucking countries, right? And the rest of the world, including Brazil, like so South America, rest of the world, Europe, Asia. So Asia being like a large contributor of carbon emissions, and shredding trees is not the answer to that. polluting the oceans. Like people don't even understand, you wouldn't even believe how many toxic waste barrels and drums there are that are eroding in the oceans that were dropped who knows how long ago, like over a series of generations by people that are shipping goods and services internationally. And someone had mentioned Project Neom yesterday. I am actually familiar with it. I didn't know the name of the project, but I thought he was talking about like a test of Project Neom. That like I went flat earth with that because I thought that's what he was talking about. But it's about the 15-minute cities, and I've been talking about 15-minute cities for years on the record, and I have literally confronted peacefully and on public grounds supervisors, like heads of destruction companies that were taking over heritage sites and smiling and smirking about it, and like completely disrupting and destroying property within communities, going after heritage sites, churches, landmark areas like monuments, national parks, and stuff like that, and for money. And really annoying that these people do this. Disgusting. And I get into that as well because like I also shared on my social media just the level of involvement. This was fun. It's not loading. So this is what I wanted to speak about. Private jets, yachts, and parties. Ontario landlords flaunted lavish lifestyle. I'm going to open up the article. I have to copy and paste the link into where like the screen that's showing. So private jets, yachts, and parties. Ontario landlords flaunted lavish lifestyle as business began to crumble. And so my business was profoundly impacted by these fucking assholes and people like them that were paying people that were part of destruction companies $15 an hour, even during lockdowns that we had to friggin' like experience and endure for years, with explosions, blast, destruction companies using military grade vehicles within meters of homes, children included in this, like people that they were impacting. And they were actually, so I'll get into it, but former child actor Robbie Clark heads a web of corporations that owe $144 million under bankruptcy protection. This was just posted a few days ago. So Ryan Maloney, Robbie Clark, Dylan Suter, and Aruba Butt, and you are a butt, left to right, have bought hundreds of rental properties across Ontario under a web of corporations. People were asking me to do this too. And so there was private lenders, for example, and I've shared this on my social media countless times, that houses that are valued and were valued at like $600,000 were being sold to these fucking corrupted assholes by private lenders, selling it for like $150,000, $200,000. So houses at cost. And you had assholes, part of destruction companies like Taggart, okay, and using Mattamy and Minto and stuff like that for the realty companies as well, bribing them and blackmailing them and having them, even without permits, destroy fucking major areas and then pay the fines afterwards. And then also caused fires and new developments, even two people I know personally, close friends with, within a 2-year period. And so like these fucking assholes exploiting us, and then charging rent double, triple the cost, even though they weren't even paying a mortgage, significantly undercut Canadians and stuff like that with the house price and stuff like that, and would sell it at like $600,000 as well. So it's so disgusting to me that these people do it, and they were doing it. And even myself getting kicked out, having to flee my home in Stittsville after they took over a heritage site that was never supposed to be fucking touched, and then damaged the roads and the properties around the surrounding areas as well, and profoundly impacted my business and my schooling, my science degree, while they were on yachts partying and celebrating like these fucking losers. Ontario, the fucking province I'm in. Promotional video, standing at the bow of a yacht, arms raised to the sky as the camera circled overhead. You can stick me in the desert with nothing and I'm going to come out owning the desert. Yeah, let's put that to the fucking test. Why don't you go with one survival fucking item and go out in the fucking desert or the wilderness? You go on fucking Naked and Afraid, buddy. But not actually do like the scripted stuff or anything like that, or the assistants. You actually go and you fucking do that. The people think that just because they have fucking money, like it changes people. Like money and power shows you who. It doesn't change people. It shows you who they truly are. That's what it does. It brings to light just the evil and disgusting behaviors that people actually do. You could, yeah. It was posted to several Instagram accounts like Billionaire Classy in March 2022. So when Helen Gruce, Ottawa Police Services, was getting suspended, when people like me were getting harassed by cops and trans groups, activist groups, and fucking you name it, people that thought that I was a fucking conspiracy theorist, extremist, right-wing, white supremacist, because of all the fucking mainstream media bullshit, they were out on yachts, international travel, like living a rich, lavish lifestyle, sports cars, relaxing, private jets, hanging out with Kanye West, Rick Ross. Yeah, as they're exploiting us, these fucking criminals. In Hamilton too, like all over the place. Ottawa, these fucking assholes, and people like them because there's a lot of them. It's not just them. And people were asking me as well too. Like I had the opportunity to do the same thing, but I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna fuck over Canadians in Canada. I'm like, what's the difference between what you're doing and what the fucking people within cabinet are doing with shares and stocks and companies that are actually killing people and exploiting people and causing immense suffering internationally? Because you're doing the same fucking thing, only you're doing it right in our fucking province, right where you piss and shit and eat, you dummies. Actually, no, they don't anymore because they're busy on yachts internationally. So again, they don't even care what happens in Ontario, even though they were fucking some of these people born and raised here. So thank you. Thank you. I'm already fired up. These people disgust me. They honestly fucking disgust me. And they're not going to pay any of the millions of dollars that they owe. And there's going to be bankruptcy protection. And they probably have like accountants and lawyers easily fucking show where they have like a complete lack of accountability. Claire Drag or Drage. The Winrose Group. And the Lion's Share Group. Yeah, so a lot of these people significantly screwed over Canadians. And they were bragging about it, so it's all on the record. Like they can't delete things from the friggin' like interweb, and so even though they can delete their accounts, they can fucking make it private, all that stuff. But everyone knows that you guys are pieces of shit. Patty has you and Bill Blair. There's a lot of people, including Brian Lilly, who are calling for them to be jailed. So not just fired, but jailed. And I've been saying that for years as well. Bill Blair's the Minister of National Defense, still makes over $500,000 a year, and then also claims a lot of money for various different things, for like meals, for travel, for you fucking name it. And he doesn't respond to emails. He doesn't respond to phone calls. So Dan Lloyd breaking. Liberals just claimed no Canadian wants to go into an election right now. Do you want an election now? Comment below. They're saying the Conservatives want an election so we can axe the tax and bring down the cost of food. I think the Conservatives want an election because they know they would win. Like, let's just be clear on that. They know now with the polls and stuff like that, they're the popular party right now. That Justin Trudeau is really, really doing low in the polls, as he rightfully should, because he's a criminal and should be in jail. So I don't know why he isn't still. But we don't want an election. And we've been saying this for many years. Do you want to, like, and so I did comment on this. So I said, we don't want an election that we foot the bill for again. 600 million more lining their pockets, because it's $600 million. Like it was probably even more than that, but that's how much it cost for their campaigns. Lining their pockets and more paid vacations when we can't afford heat. We want cabinet members and the experts they bribed to get fired and jailed immediately. This should have happened years ago. So we don't want an election. We don't want to have more money invested in campaigns and elections. Pierre Poilievre and his cabinet people being able to like travel around the freaking world, but in around Canada on our dime. And no, we don't want that fucking anymore. They've all failed in cabinet, every single one of them, including the cabinet, including the Conservatives. And they've also been responsible for spreading a lot of misinformation and then trying to jail journalists or getting journalists jailed. So even Melissa Lantsman. So like, let's talk about this left and right, part of the same bird within Canada as well. And so that's why they need to start hiring and listening to people with actual experience and credentials behind their fucking names, like myself, instead of going after the people like Justin fucking Ling, who his only experience was a few years as part of CBC Vice News. And that is what CSIS and CBSA and all the experts too that were hired by Trudeau were also going off of for their intel. Not someone that worked in a counter-terrorist unit, not someone that was Special Forces award winner, West Point Exchange, international security expert, all of that stuff. Not me. They're going after fucking leftist, not liberal, leftist media for their expertise. And even Peter Slowly, he was the chief of police in Ottawa. He admitted it on the record that he even found out about the Freedom Convoy by watching the fucking news. And I was screaming it from the rooftops weeks before it even arrived, at least a week and a half before it came to Ottawa. And I let Parliamentary Protective Services contacts I know, I let them know. I let Special Forces Five Eyes community know a week in advance, all on the fucking record. People that were part of private companies, security companies, or working within the Canadian high levels of government, I let them know as well. I let the Green Army commanders know, that people that I knew that were stationed in Petawawa. I was trying to let everyone know because like I knew that they wanted this to be exactly like January 6th, 2021, a station planned fucking false flag operation to try to incite a riot, okay, to create the Emergency Act. It didn't work that first weekend that they wanted it to. And then it was illegally declared 3 weeks later. And then all of a sudden, Russia war. Oh my God. Conveniently, like, you know, like around the same time, Pfizer documents that I've shared were also released. I'm going on all these tangents. And yeah, and some of these videos again are I mean, they're not edited. I'm winging it, and going off of obviously research to the best of my abilities. And I'm just hoping that it's at some point going to get traction to where it needs to fucking go. And people within cabinet actually pay attention to these videos or get sent these videos and pressure to watch these videos and then actually call me in finally, look at the fucking emails that I've been sending them for years. Start there, start calling me back, and then we can actually get past this. That's why I don't understand, because there's even people within Senate and Congress in the US that actually seek counsel and advice and actually have discussions with people like Anomaly. And he and I don't know if he's a flat earther or not, but like that's, or simulation earther like I am and stuff like that. I don't know if he shares that on his channel, but the stuff that I've looked at is very good. And we don't agree on everything, but I would say that like I'm the closest to like he's the closest I would say in the US to being like in line with like my interpretation of reality and certain events. And he's getting invited and talking to like even, you know, Vivek Ramaswamy and Major Marjorie Taylor Greene or whatever her name is, and countless others. And no one in the political spectrum is reaching out to me yet or contacting me yet. It's and it's also because people within the Truther community within Canada that I know personally and that I've supported and been there for and shared their work and promoted their work, they're still not propping up my stuff. And I don't know what the issue is. I don't know, you know, if it's because like they just can't get on board with Flat Earth because they're not looking at the research and like they're just dismissing me because of that, and don't want me to talk about that on their platforms, or don't want to be associated with Flat Earth. But like again, like that's still like you're not helping, right? That's the biggest lie that we need to address and discuss in order to get past that and then understand and realize if they're going to lie about stuff that fucking big, then of course there's the possibility that they're lying about the smaller stuff, right? It just makes it that more obvious that, okay, now we have to really fucking question everything. Yeah. Toronto Star, they're such liars. Mark Miller, a lawyer that's in cabinet, that's stealing our money. He should be arrested. He should be jailed. He's part of so many ethics violations and crimes and human suffering and death that are on his hands. I can't believe this disgusting human being is still employed as a public servant. It disgusts me, just like Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, Bill Blair, Patty Hajdu, and countless others. And I am not the only one that feels that way in Canada. The majority of Canadians are disgusted by these human beings now, and we cannot believe that our law enforcement and government and judicial system and legal teams have not sued these people yet, arrested them, jailed them, all of this stuff, criminal charges. We cannot believe it. And I'm talking about the polls out there. Like, it's over 75% of Canadians are absolutely disgusted. So like, not even just like not supporting, they're disgusted by public servants at this point. And I am so still infuriated by that, because we could do so much better. And we've done it in the past. Okay, there are people within government and working with government that have been vilified, character assassinated, bank accounts frozen, arrested, jailed, charged, tortured, harassed, you fucking name it, hit lists, that have been trying to share the information that I've been sharing as well. And look what happened, right? Like, pregnant with over 20 years in office, army officer getting kicked out while pregnant. Helen Bruce, over $100,000 worth of court fees with Ottawa Police Services, where they're attacking her and they're being paid hundreds of millions of dollars, again, to go after people within and amongst. And it's because of people like this. We need to have better lawyers than this. Like, do we not have Canadians that are better lawyers than the team that like Justin Trudeau hired? These leftists from different legal teams within Toronto and Ottawa. Like, are there not better lawyers out there? Like, did all the lawyers beat them? Sorry, did they beat all the other lawyers in Canada? Like, are these the best lawyers? No. Oh yeah, and Stephen Guilbeault. Oh my God, like another cabinet like moron, saying that they're not going to fund new roads. Existing network perfectly adequate. Environment and Climate Change Minister Stephen Guilbeault tells Montreal Public Transit Conference. And so this is from Ron Schinzer. Not investing in roads increases travel expenses, accelerates vehicle wear and tear, heightens accident risks, decreases economic growth, boosts pollution, restricts service access, diminishes life quality, and inflates future repair bills. These are all facts. And then it's also preventing people from expanding outwards and not pushing people into these 15-minute prisons, city like state-run, friggin' surveillance camps, and able to go into more rural areas and have access to that, right? Like the more like the feudalistic seignorial system breakdown and allocation of the land like we used to have when it was more advanced and we lived in more advanced lifestyles and stuff like that. And so like putting putting more roads in to access more rural, remote areas would be a good idea. And then fixing the roads, because they are really shit in a lot of areas. My road to get to my house is a trail. It's a dirt road. And I pay property tax for it to be maintained and serviced and stuff like that. And so like this guy has no idea what the fuck he's talking about in life, because he's also one of these elitists, not elite at all in any way, but people that think that because they had private education or different education, different club, different group, and brainwashed into thinking that they were superior or a higher class in the hierarchy of life, not experiencing life in its entirety at all, living in a cage their entire fucking life with everything given to them, freedom to do whatever the fuck they want. It's rules for thee, not for me. It's always been that way. Not always, but again, during this cycle. And so this is the stuff that needs to stop. Stephen Guilbeault needs to be fucking fired already. I've also tried to contact him for years, giving him scientific, government, medical data, all of that stuff. And I'm still waiting for the phone call. And my resume, like his life work, is not even a fucking 10th of what I have done for my country. In fact, he's actually destroying the country. So like he's like negative for his benefiting Canada and Canadians. More people are looking at suing, and so I hope that happens in the American government as well, in New Zealand and Australia, because it's all going to have to be fought in the legal system. And we need to have good criminal lawyers and good law enforcement people within Ontario wake the fuck up and actually investigate the right people. There's so much I can share, but maybe I'll share a little bit of this first for Valentine's Day. Because people, I don't know, Trudeau government police and banks being sued over Emergency Act. And I will reiterate, I'm still looking for a lawyer in Ontario looking to take my case. I want to sue these people too.
Day. It also happens to be the
Criminally.
second anniversary of the invocation of the Emergencies Act Justin Trudeau used to crush a inconvenient protest for him. Well, the good news today is, well, they're getting sued. Today on X, Stevlin Ambrose saying Happy Emergencies Act Day, everyone. Just a reminder, a week before the Emergencies Act, the Ottawa protest had been declared legal by an Ontario Supreme Court judge.
And this is what I mean. Like, Justin Trudeau is such a piece of shit. And David Lametti and Marco Mendicino and stuff like that, that on Valentine's Day, they declared the Emergency Act, even though it was unconstitutional, illegal. They weren't listening to what people were saying. They weren't looking at the data we were sharing to again, save lives. You know, not a big deal. Just to prevent harm and suffering of Canadians. Didn't want to fucking look at that. And then it declared it on Valentine's Day. Like, this is what they do it intentionally on certain days and holidays to exploit people, and they're not good people. This is by design. And if you think it was by accident or just a coincidence, you're fucking naive still. And I don't even know why you're on my channel, because this channel is for people that are fucking I don't even know what you would call it, like people that like understand reality and are able to have reality checks.
Justice McLean. And conversely, Justice Mosley of the federal court recently declared that the invocation of the Emergencies Act had been illegal, and on multiple grounds. That being said, we're looking at this as a day of history. Tamara Leach even putting out on Twitter saying Happy Emergencies Act Day. I hope you all look back and fondly remember how your government shot you with rubber bullets and tear gas for your own good. This is, I mean, you can't even, what do you even say to that? What do you even say to that?
And look at this idiot, Andy Hank. I remember when a small group of Canadians who, upon hearing their country needed a small sacrifice, instead drove to Ottawa and had a weeks-long temper tantrum. You're a fucking idiot. And the fringe minority, pseudoscientists, anti-vaxxers, I went to fucking Ottawa and had a temper tantrum. Yeah, is that what happened? And this is like a man saying this. So again, like weak men create weak societies. This guy's still fucking drinking the Kool-Aid if he's not a bot or paid to say that shit. They're such morons.
This is the reality of life in Canada anymore, but there's some good news today. Well,
and when people like myself, and I even shared the videos of this and countless others, hundreds of thousands of others, when we were locked down by these fucking idiots illegally, also, just to be clear, caused things worse. We were forced to endure military-grade destruction vehicles all hours of the fucking day. So their allocated times was from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I have on the record that early fucking mornings, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 a.m., people starting work, and then beyond 9 p.m. at night. And again, it's like double, triple shifts or getting new people in and stuff like that, doing different work. And then the beep, 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 intentionally targeting people that were speaking out on this shit and sharing the information on social media. And causing house destruction and damage, including my fucking house and countless others just in my community alone. We had to endure that to the whole fucking thing. That's why people for a couple of fucking weeks actually did contribute to the Freedom Convoy and peacefully went there, because they're like, enough is a fucking enough. These measures, these mandates, people have committed suicide, more heart attacks, more stress, quality of life absolutely fucking ruined, cognitive decline, like children being impacted, work being impacted, like people's companies being impacted. You fucking name it, because of these fucking numpties in cabinet. And they didn't even have they didn't even have the fucking wherewithal to actually listen as to why years later we were still saying, like, can you fucking stop this already? You have no idea what you're talking about, and show us the proof and the science and the medical data and stuff like that that authorizes you to force us to be inoculated with a fucking bullshit therapeutic that I've shared repeatedly. A lot worse outcomes with it, and a risk of side effects and stuff like that. I don't care what anyone says about it. I've shared the vaccine, the VAERS from Pfizer alone. And people that don't want to say that there's a link to autism even. and vaccines. Well, I fucking hate to break that to you as well. Let me see if I can get this up again. COVID-19 mRNA Pfizer BioNTech vaccine analysis print report run date 21 March 2022, lock date 16 March 2022. And look at this too, all UK spontaneous reports. Yeah, anyway, autism, Google's, a search. And so the vaccine adverse events reported, that was one of them. And there was only between 3 to 5% of the actual VAERS being reported and submitted online. And that's just from Pfizer. So like you have to also count in Moderna, AZ, AstraZeneca, J&J, Sinovac, Novavax, and all the other ones as well, and see what the VAERS reported with that as well. And again, significantly underreported. And so I will reiterate, people that want to come at me and saying that that's not a fucking fact, here you go. And also eat a dick. And also it's 2024. Can you literally just, I don't know, think outside the box now? No, after a few years, let's just go with this one as well, since they're talking about that being an outbreak. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Interesting. Yep. There we go. That's annoying. It usually comes up right away. But anyway, as in COVID-19 infection, via inoculation as well. There's countless examples of it, but I wanted to show it. I will also show you actually from, can you see this? From February of 2021. So 3 years ago now. So you'll see that's the breakdown for the abbreviation. And then here as well, infections and infestations. And this was not over 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago now that this was submitted. Infestations of COVID-19, 4.6% of people, 4.6% of the VAERS reported through until February 2021, people contracted COVID-19 through the therapeutic. As early as February of 2021, this was out there. Wait, I just want to make sure that you can see this. I should have expanded it more. And yeah, and so like there's people that are still trying to argue this with me, and I'm like, and I share them, these reports, and they don't even look at it, and then they're like, you're wrong. What am I'm sharing with you data, like, and I'm interpreting it correctly. And so there's no right or wrong. I'm just showing you data. Crazy people. Yeah, so if more people want to start suing, I highly recommend that. I really wanted to talk about Viktor Grebennikov. Fascinating individual.
Show you guys the one that I've been working real hard on to.
Actually, maybe I'll show you a shorter one before that.
Of course, it's
Anti-gravity levitation.
Courses there and learn many new skills.
Isn't that neat? I wanted to bring this up because I was talking about scarabs and beetles yesterday, or the day before. I think it was yesterday. And just like the like what they do with like the dung, you know, they put it into a ball and they bury it underground, and then like the female scarab, becomes impregnated, goes underneath, like has the child, like procreates or conceives, whatever you want to call it, and as the scarab is like developing and stuff like that, when it gets out, like it eats the dung, and then it starts its life.
For generations, humans have been on a quest
But there's more to the symbology and stuff like that as well. So like even with the wings and with the disc above the scarab or the beetle in various ancient hieroglyphs and petroglyphs and scripts and stuff like that, scriptures, you'll see that they were also showing us in plain sight advanced technologies that are here on Earth that can be utilized, that are organic.
to understand the mysteries of hyperdimensional physics and unlock the secrets of anti-gravity. Many scientists consider anti-gravitational technology to be the holy grail of the 21st century.
I'd like to call it
a single technology that will
not anti-gravity, because like I believe that there's there's radiating energy and gravitational energy. Negative, positive, electrical, magnetic. So this could be like magnetic energy. So it could be like, maybe not calling it anti-gravity, maybe you can call it like pro-magnetism. I don't know.
will completely change human civilization and bring about a new age on
And I also I talk very like masculine in my videos. I've noticed that, but in person, like I talk more feminine. I do. I'm used to having like the infantry officer drill voice. Like I've done a lot of drill and commands and stuff like that throughout my life, and I've had to speak really, really loud during various courses and when I've delivered different, like again, like training packages and stuff like that. And so it just tends to come across as like masculine, but it's just because I try to project my voice in a more in a loud, clear, direct, succinct way.
on Earth and beyond. That such technology is possible is backed up by the countless UFO videos and sightings all around the world. Recently, even the United States Navy released mysterious footage of a UFO encountered by Navy pilots.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. What's that? What is it on us, dude? Well, if there's look at that thing. It's rotating.
According to the data, NASA began its work on anti-gravity technology in 1992. They believed that a device built around a superconductor and a magnet could shield an object from gravity. Declassified documents indicate that the United States started their anti-gravity research much earlier, as far back as the 1950s. Many believe that after the infamous Roswell UFO crash in 1947, the U.S. government started spending billions of dollars on reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. Curiously, the U.S. Secretary of the Navy is listed as the administrator on several radical aviation technologies patented by aerospace engineers. For example, a mysterious man by the name of Salvatore Pais is named as the inventor of 4 ambiguous patents for which the United States Navy is the assignee. A bizarrely shaped high-frequency gravitational wave generator, a piezoelectricity-induced high-temperature superconductor, an electromagnetic field generator and method to generate an electromagnetic field that could deflect asteroids, and perhaps strangest of all, a craft using an inertial mass reduction device, described in the patent as hybrid aerospace undersea craft, which, due to the physical mechanisms enabled with the inertial mass reduction device, can function as a submersible craft capable of extreme underwater speeds. There is a lack of water skin friction and enhanced stealth capabilities. This hybrid craft would move with great ease through the air, space, and water mediums by being enclosed in a vacuum plasma bubble or sheath due to the coupled effects of EM field-induced air and water particles repulsion and vacuum energy polarization. While all are relatively outlandish sounding, the latter was personally vouched for by the Chief Technical Officer of the Naval Aviation Enterprise,
And there's John Searle's
who
lovely
claimed the
disc.
Chinese were already developing similar technologies. Although the U.S. had not admitted to possessing such a craft, countless people have witnessed a strange triangular UFO in the sky, which looks exactly like the mysterious craft from the patent. But if there is still doubt, take a look at this Google Earth image spotted a few years back in Australia. Of course, follow the coordinates now, and you'll find that the mysterious object has been hidden from Google Maps, which makes it even more suspicious. No doubt, the world of anti-gravity is one of cloak and dagger, of extraterrestrial implications and dark money funding. However, the man that we've dedicated this video to was not a backroom power player or governmental elite, but an ordinary man in an extraordinary position at the forefront of anti-gravity discovery. He did not accomplish this with billions of dollars or secret government facilities, but simply by observing nature and all its wonderful creations. Before we continue, we'd like to thank our friends from Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes in design.
No.
Viktor Stepanovich Grebennikov was born in 1927 in Simferopol, a populous city in the Crimean Peninsula region of what was then the Soviet Union. Only a few years before he was born, the city had been an important theater in the Russian Civil War. Grebennikov's mother was a noblewoman and his father a simple mechanic, two classes which previously would not have intermingled. For his part, Grebennikov was an intelligent, curious young man, and he became among the first of a new educated generation. It was this education that led him as an adult to Novosibirsk on the southern tip of the western Siberian plain. There, Grebennikov took to a wide range of interests, becoming a scientist, specifically an entomologist, which is the study of insects, but also a naturalist, painter, and rugged outdoorsman. He may also have been a poet, judging by how he described the natural beauty of the Siberian steppe, as he wrote, "A quiet evening in the steppe. The sun's red disk has already touched the faraway misty horizon. Pods of ducks gleam over the evening lake. Sandpipers are also heard in the distance. The high pearl-colored sky stretches over the calming world of the steppe. How good it is to be out here in the open country." It was this love affair with nature, far from the stuffy offices and thick books usually associated with scientists, which sent Grebennikov down the path of discovery
Very
that would
similar.
define his life. It happened almost entirely by chance one evening in the early 1980s. Grebennikov was engaged in his favorite pastime, roaming the vast steppe along with his intent to camp under the stars. As he laid his head on a makeshift pillow, Grebennikov was overcome with an unpleasant feeling, a headache, ringing ears, and a metallic taste in his mouth. He realized that he had set up camp on top of an underground bee city, that, in fact, in his own words,
John's.
the entire steppe is dappled with their holes like Swiss cheese, and in places almost like a sponge. What could this mean? Grebennikov wondered. He returned to the spot 4 more times through varying weather and times of day, and each time found the results the same. He noted that 5 meters away from the boundary of the bee city, he felt no effects. But as soon as he entered the area, he felt similarly unpleasant. This weighed on Grebennikov's mind for some time, until years later, he happened to be in an area where another bee city had recently died, that is, collapsed as a result of erosion and the passage of time. While investigating the site, Grubenikov collected parts of the nest, the familiar honeycomb, and
You'll notice like the honeycomb, 2, 3, 4, like 6 sides. But
returned
look
to
at
his
that, the most perfect structure for like filling in space as well. This shape, like the beehive cluster that's in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. I don't believe that these are coincidences. I believe this is all connected stuff and
office. There he noticed the
Seal of Solomon, the Star of David. There's so many other representations of
most
this
unusual
sacred
phenomenon.
geometric pattern.
When he put his hand over the honeycomb, he could feel a heat emanating from it,
Heat.
a thermal sensation, which made him lightheaded. He got others to try,
Heat.
and they reported
Magnetic heating, radiating, expanding, disappearance of form, disintegration.
similarly feeling heat
Like
or
the sun.
cold wind,
The luminary.
having numbness in their fingers, or feeling as though their hand was being pushed around. Most peculiar, the cause of this could not be measured by any traditional scientific device. Grubenikov noted that thermometers or ultrasound detectors, magnetometers, and electrometers did not respond to them in the slightest. Further, the effect could not be blocked by covering, even with a thick piece of metal. Strangely, clocks, both mechanical and electronic, started running inaccurately when
Clocks, both mechanical and electric. I will reiterate that. Mechanical and electric were impacted
placed near the zone.
when placed near the
By
zone.
chance, Grubenikov had discovered the cavity structural effect, CSE, which is what he called this type of force field which surrounded cavernous honeycomb-like objects. Believing
Magnetic
this to
toroidal
be an
field, we
important
call
and
it.
potentially groundbreaking discovery, Grubenikov published an article on his findings. Surprisingly, the article went unnoticed or ignored in the mainstream scientific community. Thus, Grubenikov was left to continue the work himself. While his status as an entomologist was probably at least partially responsible for the indifference of the scientific community, it was this vocation that allowed Grubenikov his next major breakthrough, a discovery that would change everything. In 1988, Grubenikov was examining the chitin shells of insects under a microscope when he noticed what he called an unusually rhythmic, extremely ordered, incomparable honeycomb, solid multidimensional composition, which looked as if it was pressed by some complicated automatic machine. As he moved deeper into study, something extraordinary happened. As Grubenikov described, I was about to place a second identical plate with the same unusual cell structure on its underside, almost purposely on top of the first one. But then the little plate came loose from my tweezers,
Look at that.
hung suspended above the other plate on the
Every time I
microscope
see it.
stage for a few seconds,
Look at
then
that.
turned a few degrees clockwise and swung, and only then it abruptly fell on the desk. When I came to my senses, I tied a few panels together with a wire, and it wasn't an easy thing to do. I succeeded only when I positioned them vertically. What I got was a multi-layered chitin block, and I placed it on the desk. Even a relatively large object, such as a thumbtack, would not fall on it. Something pushed it up and
Look at that.
aside. When I attached the tack on top of the block, I witnessed incredible, impossible.
I think this is where like there's magnetism that's heavily influencing this as well, because like even with magnets, depending on if they're positively or negatively charged and what like for the side or the area that's being interacting with the other force or energy, like it does also repel. Like it can attract, but it can also repel depending on the energy. And so like that also looks very similar to something that would happen with that interaction.
things. The tack would disappear from sight for a few moments.
Very neat.
That was when I realized that this was no beacon, but something entirely different. This incredible discovery got Grebennikov thinking. Science suggested that some bugs should be too big to fly, based on the size of their wings and the speed of their wings' beat. Was the cavity structural effect caused by this incomparable honeycomb
Hummingbirds too.
creating some sort of anti-gravity field, allowing the bugs to defy physics and fly? Were the bugs, in fact, not flying at all, but levitating? Following this line of thought and the works of past scientists like Nikola Tesla, Grebennikov set about trying to create some sort of anti-gravitational vehicle. For years he toiled,
You gotta
pouring
look at
heart and
magnetism.
soul into the project, until finally he came up with something possessing apparently amazing characteristics. By attaching hundreds, if not thousands, of chitin shells to the bottom of a simple wooden platform, Grebennikov had invented an anti-gravity vehicle which he claimed could travel at up to 1,500 kilometers per hour, as many as 300.
So let's put that into perspective. 1,500 kilometers possibly, allegedly, that this thing could travel. And people are alleging that at the equatorial zone of the Earth, it's not spinning at all. But people are trying to lie to us and tell us that it's spinning at like 1,600 kilometers an hour during certain areas. And
Meters off the ground. He operated the device by stepping on the platform and using two handles attached to the base by a single pole. Despite the incredible speeds, the rider did not experience any effects, no inertia properties or dynamic pressure, almost as if they were ensconced in a bubble or force field. Further, when in flight,
yeah,
the
of course,
device was
a magnetic
invisible
field,
from below, appearing as only a light
an
sphere
electromagnetic field.
or cloud in the sky. Observers noticed that even his shadow was missing when in flight, and his watch was constantly shifting forward or backward. We know from Einstein that time, space, and gravity are intertwined. Humble in the face of such a potentially world-changing invention, Grebennikov believed that so-called real science should investigate his discovery. Thus, he filed for a patent. Shockingly, his patent application was resoundingly denied, while Grebennikov was rejected and called out by skeptics and other scientists. It certainly didn't help that he lacked photographic proof, as his camera would malfunction during flights as a result of the cavernous structure's effect. But the reception he received for such an apparently groundbreaking invention represented the antagonistic relationship Grebennikov had with the establishment throughout his career. He was not shy about this, asserting, "The joy of creative work, even of work that ends in failure, is far higher and brighter than earning any diplomas, medals, or patents," and describing those he was at odds with as evil, ignorant people. But perhaps the reception to Grebennikov's invention went beyond mere antagonism. In 1992, his
That
patent
beard, too, though.
application having been rejected, Grebennikov sought to publish a book detailing his discovery, the principles and measurements of his invention, backed by a litany of full-color images. It was said this would include photographs of a demonstration of the machine Grebennikov gave at a museum. However, just before the book was released, the publishers, possibly at the behest of authorities, undertook dramatic edits of the book, removing hundreds of pictures and all schematic details. Why, at the same time, Grebennikov was being called out by skeptics was evidence of his invention being subverted. According to a longtime colleague, Grebennikov was part of a so-called scientific underground that was persecuted and victimized by the scientific establishment
Sounds
and
familiar.
governmental authorities. Given the money governments were admittedly and allegedly spending in pursuit of the secrets Grebennikov had apparently discovered, it is perhaps no surprise his discovery would be suppressed. Maybe Grebennikov had inadvertently stumbled across something more powerful and thus more dangerous than he could have imagined, a deep and almost mystical power sought by humans for centuries.
No, it's literally because there are people that are part of these destruction friggin' companies like all over the world that are also exploiting us and putting in like the electrical grids and stuff like that we're being slaves to, trying to make everything electrical. It's all the people that are part of these companies, the electrical grid, and the people that that profit off of the poles they put in, the wiring. Again, they don't really do that anymore anyways. That the grids have not been updated for generations. And then Robert Miller from Quebec, a billionaire. I don't know if he's from Quebec, but he was living in Quebec, but a billionaire pedophile, charged, convicted, with multiple accounts of raping children. Okay, it's rape. If you're paying for it from like your underground human trafficking schmucks, drug trafficking schmucks, you know, it's still a crime. But anyway, and so will he get jail? I don't know. Billionaire in a mansion, Quebec, and part of the electrical grid too. Like these guys, like at the top, real winners. And they're exploiting us. Like that's what was my thing too. So like even with fireplaces, like we're getting exploited where you need to have like a wet certification or certain like inspections and up to certain ridiculous codes for a fucking fireplace. And some insurance companies in Canada won't even insure you, and you need to have insurance. Fun fact, in Canada, in order to be approved for a mortgage with banks, and again, they're all connected. It's all exploitation, and they all work together, and won't approve you for a mortgage if you don't have the insurance. Or they'll just boost up your insurance and stuff like that if you're like if you're not within like 8 kilometers of a fire hall. Like the absolute absurdity.
Dreamed about with every UFO sighting or unexplained.
The people that are pushing the carbon taxes, like people that are in the oil industry that know the reality of petroleum, that it's the second most abundant fluid in the world, where it comes from, that it's not a fossil fuel. That there's like there's so much, right? But like all of these taxes and the exploitation and the taxes on the carbon tax, they don't give a shit either. So even it's at all levels. Like there are people that are failing us. When I say cabinet, I'm also saying like the experts and or the people that they're working with and around all over the country, right? This includes like people that are the heads of the oil companies, people that are the heads of the fucking education systems, people that are the heads of the banking systems, and part of like the mines and stuff like that. Like these people are, a lot of these people now are not even Canadian. Okay, there's a problem with this, guys. There's a problem with this, and they don't even live in Canada either. Like, come on.
Human artifact. Consider the Great Pyramid of Giza, a structure so incredible that generations of deep thinkers have speculated how an ancient society could have created such a thing. It
Even
is
in
a
the U.S.,
mystery.
like what am I talking about? Even in the U.S., it's non-Americans. A lot of non-Americans own your education systems, own your banking systems, own like call the shots within your cabinet and your Senate organizations, and the one that the people that are donating the most to like these different institutions, including like Bill and Melinda Gates and George Soros, so George Soros and Klaus Schwab, and like the Saudi Arabian princes, like a few of them, and Elon Musk is not American. He identifies as one, but like he has Canadian South African lineage, and apparently he had to move from South Africa because of whatever thing that he did when he was a kid, whatever, and they moved to Canada. So another person that's a billionaire that heavily funds American businesses and entrepreneurship, stuff like that, not American. And there's like also Chinese investors as well, that are not American, and celebrities that are in the U.S. That are pushing propaganda that are not American.
So inexplicable that some have suggested the ancients must have had access to some sort of alien technology. This might not be as far-fetched as it sounds. Recent research shows that the pyramid centralizes and conveys electromagnetic energy into the inner chambers and towards the top, as in Grebennikov's honeycomb. Further, where chitin shells from bugs
I don't want you to miss that. Sorry, I went on these freaking tangents, but I wanted to show the connection of the pyramids, energy grids, and bugs. If it starts.
Suggested the ancients must have had access to some sort of alien technology.
Not alien.
This might
Yes.
not be as far-fetched as it sounds. Recent research shows that the pyramid centralizes and conveys electromagnetic energy into the inner chambers and towards the top, as in Grebennikov's honeycomb. Further, where chitin shells from bugs powered Grebennikov's flying machine, the beetle was a vitally important symbol in Egyptian mythology, often depicted in art and icon. Alien or not, it appears the Egyptians may have had access to a knowledge since lost to human beings, thirsted for by governments, and rediscovered by Grebennikov centuries later. What exactly Grebennikov discovered is unknown to
neat.
this day.
So neat.
It may sound incredible, but the mysterious usually does until it becomes a reality. Before his death in 2001, Grebennikov left us with these words: "There is no mysticism. The thing is simply that we humans still know little of the universe, which, as we see, not always accepts our all too human rules, assumptions, and orders."
I love that ending with that, because I'm in the same boat along with that. And so even when I talk about different religions, I don't mean to minimize or dismiss religions or esoteric groups or occult groups or other. My interpretation of astrotheosophy is based on people like Alvin Boyd Kuhn and countless others. And I also look into like the electromagnetism, light, including visible and non-visible light, and its influence on humans, its influence on our bodies, on our minds, and even frequencies and waves and vibrations, how it heavily influences us. And there's been advanced technologies in the past where they utilize these to heal people, and or where we were able to access our higher levels of consciousness and emotions, and not be inflamed or irritated at a cellular level like we constantly are right now. We're being inundated with inflammatory data at all levels, and by people that are fucking weirdos, man. That are and even in these books, they constantly again like warn us against this, right? And like the misinterpretation, like of various different like religious peoples, that causes division on an international scale, like, and it's by design, with like how people dumbed down like the interpretation of the reality of the world to reach the masses. It made people lose the actual meaning and message in itself, like a game of telephone. And so there's a lot of people in the past as well, in various different religions and sects, that firmly believe that even writing things down, like they were against it. And so like they would condemn having written scriptures and Bibles that were seen as like the facts or realities or the truth about this cosmos, because like it can't be explained in a book, right? It's higher level consciousness, like the being or the beings that created this cosmos or universe. It's beyond our level of comprehension or understanding. And the more we interpret it with our own biases without being open to other interpretations, it's led us to where we're at right now. And there's been cycles throughout history where there's been societal collapse because of bad people being allowed free reign to harm people from within, because no one did anything about it in a peaceful way. It has to be peaceful, because when we talk about the pendulum swing and stuff like that too, these extremes, right? People are saying, like, oh, like kill these people. Like that's like, to me, that's insane, right? Because like hurt people, and the pendulum swing is it's gonna be back at us, right? Like this is why these fucking cycles repeat, because people have not found a different solution other than causing harm. Like, you know what I mean? And so like that's just my opinion on that. It has to be peaceful. It has to be coming from and it's hard, you know what I mean? But like a loving, empathetic, caring way, but in a courageous, brave way. We need to have people that are law enforcement and people that are in positions to impact change, to do their fucking jobs now. Get the courage, the bravery, and the moral fortitude and the ethics and stuff like that. These are all hard. Okay, it's easy to be angry. It's easy to be lower level, All right, like that's literally like the start state. You know what I mean? Like we evolve from fear. Like that's our base emotions, and then we evolve like the higher level emotions and stuff like that. And as adults and spiritual beings, we're supposed to manage our emotions, and so if we're like living in the lower level, where we're not coming at solutions with that higher level consciousness, and so it's not the right answer in my humble opinion. And so that's why I'm saying jail, solitary confinement, all of this stuff. Absolutely. I'm absolutely for, like, obviously punishing people that commit crimes and destroy humanity. But there's ways to do it. Like, we're supposed to fire these people. We're supposed to investigate these people. We're supposed to jail these people. There's so much on these levity discs, or these anti-gravity technologies, whatever they want to call it. I could go on a tangent on that. But I wanted to share just a little bit more of the flatten the curve. Because I said yesterday I wanted to share Dave McGowan moon landing hoax as well. But
we are participants in a prison system.
Drazev, I hope I'm saying that right. Truth in plain sight.
To see. Once the veil is lifted, there is no turning back. Many of us rarely realize.
Oh, sorry. Even with Alex Jones, he's great. So I'm just going to stop this for a second and look at some conversations here. Yeah. And I've shared this in previous videos. If you're new to my channel, check out Don189 on Rumble. But even in the early 1900s, even Germany had full-out clinics, like medical hospitals, healing facilities that were turned into these medical clinics, and there were trans women, so AKA men, that were also part of these experiments and stuff like that. At that time, there were no women yet, but obviously, like slowly it became a minority, but like it was mostly, again, men doing this. And yeah, and throughout time this has happened, even in petroglyphs and hieroglyphs and stuff like that. There are cases of people trying this. Sodom and Gomorrah. But even with Alex Jones, I would love to go on his show. And he does share a lot of truth. Like, there was a comment in here about him like having really good information and informants. I do as well. And I wish I can find it. The thing is, I don't know, like, he goes off on these friggin' tangents, right? Like, about religion. I understand where he's coming from, but but religion and aliens and all of these like extra like dimensional beings, or whatever you want to call it, beings from like other planets. And like he talks about anyway, I'm not into that stuff, right? And so when he talks about that stuff and goes on these tangents about that, I just that's hard for me to follow, right? And that's even within the truther community. Like I was saying yesterday, there's division, unfortunately, even within the truther community. Just like with Alex Jones, like if you believe or say a certain thing, you're dismissed even within the truther community, right? So like a lot of people that believe in the globe, they dismiss flat earthers completely. But even within the truther community, if I say that I believe that Jesus Christ is a representation of the sun, the literal sun, that's already excommunicated me from a lot of people. And then when I share what I believe in Satan to be, that also excommunicates me from a lot of people within that group, and including the Alex Jones types, right? Like, this is stuff that he believes in. He believes that people are like that there's truly like demons, and that there's truly Satan, and it is what it is. And so if he could get past that, and not be so judgmental and think that I'm going to hell and be damned and stuff like that, like, it would be great to have conversations with these people as well. It's just, anyway, it is what it is.
We are the victims of indoctrination. We follow the pre-planned layout of life, living in a state of confusion, controlled by a small group of individuals who possess great wealth, estate, and control. They monetarily benefit by keeping us blind to the true nature of the shape of the earth. Most are too busy to question what they are told or investigate the scientific theory about the physical world and its shape, wrongly taught in schools as fact. Inquiries made on a controlled platform such as YouTube or Facebook are quickly rerouted to videos and content that hold no merit. Misconceptions occur either intentionally or due to lack of research by mixing heliocentric and geocentric cosmology together, causing incoherence that pushes the viewer away from learning. Why would a lie like this exist? What purpose does this level of deception?
Like, I'm really digging this comment too. Like, I'm resonating with a lot of what is said here. The dimension of thought where people live in the gray manifests into the physical, which is equivalent to distance of aliens and such. Invoking beliefs creates a spiritual entity of faith. Like, our perception is reality, and even with like the within this game or the simulation, this artificially created environment that uses cellular and digital coding, intelligently created, I believe that with the perception as reality thing, like we need to force ourselves, like this free will that we believe that we have. Like I believe that it allows us to either optimize in this environment or degrade and de-evolve in this environment. And that is more where we have it's dependent on us and our surroundings, our environment, and the other characters in the game, for sure. And so yeah, I'm resonating with that big time. And then, so if you're like living in a negative way, like lower level vibrations, always angry, always upset, always, living in despair and self-pity and stuff like that, even though it's warranted, even if it's warranted, like I'm not saying that, like life isn't fucking shitty right now, and there's a lot of things that we're unfortunately not able to avoid, like even with the sunblock shit, unfortunately. And but forcing her, like not staying in that routine of like listening to even like negative, like low vibration music, right? Like even like certain rap and even some certain country songs and stuff like that, like even within the music, it makes us low vibration, more irritable, more angry, more anxious, more living in fear, more slutty, more, I don't know. And consuming porn, and then like losing or wasting your seed and your Christ oil in ways that are not beneficial to you or others. These are all things that like make that create the environment that we're living in. Like and so it's hard, but like even like things like refraining from drinking, or being moderate with it, and like even with music, like trying to select music where there's like positive vibrations and frequencies, and anyway, things like that builds and creates the like a more positive game.
Seek to gain? The hard, solid truth is that all the known space agencies and related industries have made untold amounts of money for many, many years, providing nothing but CGI, fisheye lens curvature, and Hollywood-style productions as proof. The following evidence should speak for itself through the testimonies of these professionals, pilots, and witnesses. To find yourself, think for yourself. The most courageous act is to think for yourself.
Yep.
Our greatest wish is for minds opened, questions answered, and the reign of freedom through truth revealed.
I can only imagine the stories that this person can tell, Johnny Death. If your brother's a major casting director, like I want stories. Oh, is this muted? No. Oh.
Hey John, how are you?
Pretty good, sir. How's everything there?
I don't want to put that on the main screen, but like I hope people go on YouTube. That's sad, Johnny Death. I'm really sorry that you dealt with that.
Anyhow,
That is so messed up.
Questions regarding the flat Earth, trying to get information out of me that I'm not too familiar with the subject. Help me out.
Yes, sir. Copy that. I'll give you a couple of relatively quick examples that you can also research and elaborate as well. Number one,
Oh my God, in Hollywood, I've shared that, and I've showed like Isaac Cappy's work. I'm sure you're familiar with him. And talking with survivors, and then also seeing like people that got killed or murdered, like Anne Hesh and stuff like that, for speaking out on this. She's just one example of many. And it's a real thing, like with the Epstein list and the amount of friggin' celebrities and friggin' actors, especially coming out of Hollywood, that are on that friggin' list in California in general and other. But anyway, it's international, and underground tunneling systems and stuff like that, and private islands, private jets, private airports, and it's human and drug trafficking. Like, these are the big industries right now that certain occult, well, I mean, not occult, but like certain groups are exploiting. And they're people that are pretending that they are good people and noble people and virtuous people in the limelight on the mainstream media, that they have intentionally put in place in order to brainwash us or control us and stuff like that. It's not news. No one wants to hear this, but like the monarchy and what the queen or king represents, what the Pope represents, what even with these like aid agencies, like the UN, also within certain areas, departments of the UN, there are people that also are big parts of the human and drug trafficking cartels. And the Pope is like a really head position in the UN and other organizations. We need to keep talking about this shit, right? Like, even at risk to ourselves, because this is stuff that's going to keep on fucking happening, and people like Johnny are going to keep on getting fucking exploited and lives ruined for the rest of their fucking lives because of these fucking creep pedos. And not even just pedos, pedovores. There's that as well, allegedly. And again, because I'm on YouTube and X now, this stuff just gets me really fucking angry. That's just so much. But then also like exploiting people, like women that didn't know what they were getting themselves into. And again, there's like responsibility when you're an adult, like you should know better and stuff like that. But like, yeah, it is what it is. Ugh. People need jail, and people are, and everyone is bought. Like everyone is fucking bought in what we're calling first world countries now as well. So even when you try to get like law enforcement involved to do something about it, or legal, like lawyers and stuff like that, it's conflict of interest, or they're looking the other way, or they're getting money to fucking cover it up, or they're getting hired, okay, and blackmailed and bribed when they're in, specifically to like not, charge these people or no jail time, none of that stuff.
Online, you're going to give you some type of formula for every 100 miles.
People are just burying their head in the sand.
Give you some type of XYZ per kilometer squared. Keep it very, very simple. Every 100 miles will be approximately 1 mile. 1 mile is 5,280 feet. The actual number is 6666, which is of Luciferian origin, which really reveals who's behind all the conspiracy and cover-ups, for everything. But the bottom line here is a very simple formula. Is for every 100 miles, you have 5,280 feet, which is 1 mile of curvature. So 100 miles equals 1 mile of curvature. Now, if I'm going, let's say, hypothetically, from Long Island to Nantucket, that's about $1.50, about 150 miles. So it should be 1.5 miles. So let's just take a mile. So with aviation.
Okay, so the sound's pretty bad on this one, or maybe it's just my screen.
Hola, mi nombre es Héctor Requena. Soy terraplanista desde el 2016.
Yeah, so
Este
8
tema
years.
lo descubrí accidentalmente, me agradó mucho y desde ahí lo empecé a investigar. Desde ahí me di cuenta de lo que está pasando en el mundo. Yo fui aviador, me gusta más la palabra aviador que piloto. Yo volé con mi papá desde niño, él era piloto de la Fuerza Aérea Mexicana. Un tema muy curioso que me pasó a mí fue el empezar a conocer cómo funciona el giroscopio. El giroscopio está diseñado para volar sobre un plano,
It has
sobre un
subtitles though,
terreno plano
because this is a
y una
good
tierra que no se
video.
mueve. Todos estos temas me llevaron a seguir investigando. Estamos tratando de invitar a la gente a que no se cierre de mente a estos temas, ya que si no nos damos cuenta de lo que está pasando ahorita es por lo mismo, porque la gente está cerrada, se cierra a pensar fuera de la caja.
Another question was asked about like even like law enforcement, people within government, like when you share all of this information that I was just talking about, they don't know what to do with it. So like it's not even just the human drug trafficking stuff, but also the flat earth stuff, like the fake moon landing stuff. They don't know what to do with it, right? But I keep saying like you need to not sound or look crazy. I know it's hard because like even just by saying the topic, people already dismiss you, which is unfortunate and ignorant. Just need to keep pushing the information higher and try and attempt to have civil discourse with people. It's hard because of people like Neely Caitlin Murr and these people like they need to have their mics friggin' muted, you know, like they're not the people that have conversations with anyone, and these are the people that we're up against, right? And so and even people that are trying to even people within government that are trying to question areas. There's other law enforcement at the provincial or municipal level that are preventing it, like the people that I'm telling you, or the state level that are allowing this stuff to happen. And these people also, unfortunately, like they need to be held accountable at the higher level, right? So at the federal level, and so more federal people. So whether it be like RCMP for Canada, for example, to go into these places where law enforcement are supporting and enabling the human and drug trafficking. That's happening in Canada and the US too, like a lot of it. They need to arrest these people. Like they need to start, we need to start like the, what I've been saying from the beginning, government people need to start holding government accountable. That's never happened before, you know, in Canada or the US, and it should, and Canada should be the ones that make an example of what's going on. And we need to jail people within government that were public workers. They are not above the law. And they've committed huge crimes against humanity, including Wayne Eyre, our chief of defense staff. And in the past, there's countless examples in ancient history where we were more evolved when these people were punished and banished from countries. Other things as well, but I don't recommend the other things because, again, I also think that that's not the answer. These people should be punished and held accountable by a court of law, okay, that they're supposed to uphold, right? So, like, that's what needs to happen, and it keeps on not happening, right? So, like, cops need to be brave enough to, like, if the people that they're going against and questioning and interrogating, like, yes, there are other law enforcement or other government organizations, right? But you don't just let it drop if they don't cooperate. You have to make it go higher. You have to stir the pot. You have to shake the hive. You have to do that. And a lot of people don't want to fucking do that. And it's infuriating because, like, that's what you're paid to do. People like me went and deployed overseas, you know, risked our lives and lost people that we loved. Like law enforcement in Canada, it's your duty, okay, to step up like we do in the military and have. And you need to start risking your job. I know that sucks. You have to start risking your fucking job because that's your job. That's why you got paid the big bucks, to start going after and investigating these people. Justin Trudeau, RCMP, were investigating him and he refused to give evidence. And they dropped it. I'm sorry. That's not your job. Who the fuck is Justin Trudeau? Part-time drama teacher with the alleged crimes that he's committed and stuff like that. Crimes against humanity. Like, this guy needs to be in jail. Wake the fuck up, people. And that's what we can do. That's what people want. We don't want elections. We don't want any of this shit. We want to have like people in charge that are not exploiting us, thinking that we're ignorant and don't understand what's going on, wasting our fucking money, trying to steal our money in the process too, while they're harming us. And their excuses, I don't know what's going on, because no, you don't know what's going on because you don't actually look at your emails. And that's their fucking plan too. When people can like, and ignorance is not an excuse, just like in the military. Like, ignorance of rules of engagement, for example, is not an excuse to commit crimes against humanity, against people. So just to be clear. And so when people in cabinet do this excuses, I didn't know, I didn't say that. Like, well, it's because like when people were emailing you and calling you and reaching out to you and peacefully protesting, you were just doing this, or having them fucking arrested, or talking about employing tanks on them, or actually employing rubber bullets and gas fucking and tear gas on them. declaring them criminals illegally. These people are not fit to run a fucking McDonald's, let alone a fucking country. They're not fit to run a daycare. And the fact that if I say, imagine Chrystia Freeland or Justin Trudeau or David Lametti or Marco Mendicino running a daycare, I'm sure a lot of people here just cringed at that thought. So that is another reason why the fuck that guy should be in jail. Just by your likely response to me saying that, that's like Biden. Do you want Biden to be the head of a daycare where that your child is in? That should be enough. That should be enough to have to have this guy investigated and also jailed. Just
been a military brat all my life. However, I've been in the industry of aviation for the last 21 years. And I became an FE somewhere around 15 or 16 when I really started looking at conspiracies. I looked into Benghazi because I happen to work on government contracts abroad, overseas. But I've been in aviation for 21 years, anything from helicopters to aerostats to big birds, little birds, fighter jets, things with engines, no engines, big blades, little blades, compressor blades, which, by the way, that one's not a hoax. Jets do not run only on compressed air. Contrary to popular belief, it takes compressed air in a blended ratio of air to fuel to drive the now heated gas and rotate the compressor blades. This has been a topic of discussion between FE and, not everything's a hoax. Coriolis effect. With that ties into, obviously with no spin, around the axis points that they say exist at 23.4 conveniently, 66 off the 90 degrees, right? Everything ties into 666 with NASA. And
all these 666 is not a coincidence.
Scientists. Our aircraft have things called ADIs, attitude direction indicator, which gives correlation between the aircraft housing or the shell around the gyro itself. The ADI is nothing more than a gyro that will always reference level. I don't care what any pilot says. I don't care what any mechanic tells you. There's a reason that pilots have one book called a Pilot Operating Handbook, and there's every other book, right? From structures to avionics to wiring diagrams to the actual components that make up these systems. That is a standalone system. The ADI does not lie. I don't care how cold it is, how high you are, and some of these guys are pretty damn high. It doesn't matter where you're going. It doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter where you are over the realm itself.
I woke up to the truth of the flat earth, shape of the earth, as an engineer and a pilot. So I've studied engineering, physics, 3 different ways: basic physics, electric physics, and construction physics. And also as a pilot, as a rotary wing pilot, that is helicopter pilot, I studied aeronautical physics as well. So I can cover and discuss just about any factor of flat earth. Not that I'm any.
So any globe earthers watching watching the channel, do you have any of those qualifications? That's a lot of physics in different forms.
Smarter than anybody else, but I've studied quite a bit of factors that analyze shape and motion of just about any object. That's physics, also aeronautical physics, and principles of flight. I can tell you this: airplanes fly straight and level. That's even an aviation term, straight and level. Airplanes will fly for hours at the same altitude, never dipping their nose down to follow the curve of the earth. An aircraft on a 12-hour or even 18-hour flight from Portland, Oregon to Seoul, Korea, that would have that aircraft starting at one point and then flying so far around the earth that it's flying downwards with its nose vertically downwards, and then starting to go around the curve of the earth so that the airplane is now flying upside down. Would have to make that kind of a flight path on a globe, which is, it's such an absurdity. So that being said, I come into the true shape of the earth, the flat earth, as a skeptic, like most anyone else. I'll tell you my story. My buddy told me about this. He said, Rob, you need to learn about the ice ring. You need to learn that the earth doesn't move. This globe is garbage. And I laughed at him. I said, are you kidding me? I'm not even going to look into that. He said, that's fine. He said, that's fine. You don't have to look into flat Earth. But until you do, he said, until you do look into flat Earth, you will remain a slave of the Matrix. And interestingly enough, at this point, this was more or less November, December 2015. I had already mentally resigned from the U.S. military for 3 years. I had already resigned because of Benghazi. I realized, and I saw for myself, I'd been working with U.S. as an Army officer, working for State Department for a good 10 years. And so what I did, I turned my physics awareness, I turned my studies into analysis of the shape of the Earth.
I have a bachelor's degree in English and International Business and a master's degree in Emergency Management. Emergency Management is an area of study that deals with lessening the effects of natural or man-made disaster. Areas I had to study related to emergency management were meteorology, geology, geography, hydrology, and oceanography. You have to know well how Earth works in order to prevent or lessen the consequences of a natural disaster. In 2019, I wrote the book called 16 Emergency Landings Proving Flat Earth. Not many people know that when I was younger, I worked for an international airline. I worked at the International Cargo and Logistics Division of the company at São Paulo International Airport. I had to know all international routes in order to provide our clients the precise information about import and exports, as well as the logistics of transporting cargo internationally. Our company transported from a simple parcel package to cars and helicopters to anywhere in the world. Having access to all areas of the airport in 1988, the Brazilian soccer team was about to board their flight towards Australia to take part of the Bicentennial Soccer Cup in Australia. It was a tournament to celebrate Australia's 200th
That was a good
birthday.
video.
Two South American teams were
16,
invited to take
emergency
part in
landings.
this tournament, Brazil and Argentina. At that time, we had access to several maps, all
long for me to completely unravel that for the hopes that it is. After that, I was starting to realize that we had been lied to on so many levels. What else could there possibly be? Then I saw a video about the flat Earth pop up on my YouTube recommendations. At first, even with my awakened mind, I thought this was
Up early in
absolutely
California.
ridiculous.
3 hours
I
behind.
decided that I'd look into it simply to disprove it and move on. It should be easy, right? That was over 6 years ago, and I still can't disprove the flat Earth. In fact, the more I research it, the more it reveals. This leads me into my submarine experience. Looking back on everything I had accomplished while on active duty with eyes to see, has only served to solidify my stance that we live on a flat and motionless plane.
That's a good one too. The
of
elusive.
land being hidden on Earth as one of the possible motives to hide the fact that the Earth is not a spinning water ball corkscrewing through space is something that many flat earthers have postulated over the years. And I just couldn't shake the concept from my mind, where, just like Rear Admiral Richard Byrd suggested during his Antarctic expedition, Operation Hydra, that there is undiscovered land on Earth, and that possibility spawned an idea to write The Elusive Curve, a modern-day quest to discover another world. The Elusive Curve is a fictional novel created to convey a very non-fictional message, that the Earth is a flat, motionless, level plane devoid of any curvature. When Max Carter discovers irrefutable proof of the true shape of the Earth, the course of his life drastically changes, and he becomes a man obsessed convinced that there is more land being hidden beyond Antarctica, and that he is going to reach it. The elusive curve debunks typical globe Earth claims, including ships disappearing over the horizon due to the curve of the Earth, the Foucault's pendulum, and the Coriolis effect, whilst presenting flat Earth proofs like visual perspective, level water over vast distances, and long-distance photography, all within the context of Max's varied and colourful relationships.
Also, there's a semi-classified naval communication device when ships are communicating ship to ship on the ocean, U.S. Navy, semi-classified laser communication NAVCOM device, which also does data as well. So if they're communicating with ships 70 miles, 100 miles or more, like I said, every 100 miles is a mile of curvature. So it wouldn't work because lasers operate line of sight. They operate in a straight line. There's no curvature to the laser. So the bottom line here is the naval NAVCOM classified, semi-classified system that they use to communicate ship to ship, that operates on a laser. And if there was curvature, anything over, like I said, 100 miles is 5,280 feet of curvature, and the ship's diameter is nowhere near that, which you know. So there's another example, the naval NAVCOM communication device. Also, there's a woman, female KLH pilot, KLH Dutch Commercial Airlines. She got fired from her job a while back for questioning this issue. Now, they didn't throw her out of the company, but they gave her like a desk job, so this way they kind of keep her around and quiet so they can control. Because she's a very sane and rational woman. If they ask her, what happened, she starts talking, it's going to raise serious questions. So we got the KLH pilot, we got the laser NAVCOM, U.S. Navy. We've got my personal experience flying from Long Island to Bangkok. That this should be at least 5,280 feet of curvature added to the 4,000 altitude average while heading easterly. So there's something very wrong there. The numbers don't work.
Could the Earth actually be flat? I began to see opinions and arguments that seemed logical, but I heard several arguments, which I now know were most likely disinformation, easily disprovable in the aviation world, but there were some that stuck with me. And so, myself being the way I am, I ran quickly, metaphorically, to my old textbook, and I opened my old textbooks, found them, unpacked them, cracked them all open, and even downloaded brand new copies in PDF form offline of all these books to make sure that nothing had been changed. I thought for certain that I knew exactly what compensation pilots are trained while flying to compensate for the spin or the rotation of the Earth, for instance. As far as falling around a globe, I assumed in my mind would be an aircraft's angle of attack. But upon more study, I found that not to be true. The angle of attack being the angle between the aircraft's flight path and the relative wind, which is something that pilots are very familiar with. And it's the idea that an aircraft has to be slightly pitched up, essentially to stay airborne, or a surface of that aircraft has to be pitched slightly to create a difference in air pressure to hold the aircraft aloft. And that is assumed, or was assumed at that time by myself and other pilots, to be the compensation one would make for falling around a globe while flying, period. But upon further research, I found that this was not the case, and it was not even mentioned anywhere. This compensation was not mentioned anywhere I could find in any resource that I had gone to flight school with. And they were extensive. There were many, many books, especially as one progressed towards the commercial flying side, especially elective courses, especially if you're going to university, as I was, studying aerospace, then you would assume, and I had assumed, that this was calculated for.
Again, as far as ADIs in every aircraft, it references the level horizon or references sea level always. There's no way that you can convince somebody of sound mind that if you take off from New York and immediately flip upside down, now your housing or your ADI is referencing upside down to you because you're upside down. It's right side up. It cannot deviate off level. It doesn't matter how much fuel you got in your tanks. It doesn't matter if you're a helicopter or an aerostat or a fighter jet. That gauge will always reference level. It has to, because otherwise it would be a poor reference. And if you could manipulate it, why would you even have it in the airplane or your aircraft? But if you go take off 2 miles away, do a barrel roll, you're now flying upside down. At what point does that gauge show you back right side up? A half a hemisphere away? Is that what we're led to believe? Is that what we're supposed to believe? At what point does it right itself if you never flipped back over and continue flying level? You see what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. It's ludicrous to think that thing compensates for curvature in straight and level flight.
The big one that is oftentimes quoted is compensation for Coriolis effect while flying. And this is something I'd even taught my students about, and it's always assumed to be correct. We just assume. We're given the narrative from a young age, and everything is built upon that assumption, upon the theory. And so I thought I had the silver bullet. Coriolis effect. We always calculate for that. Well, as I began to look through the books and to look into the calculations given for Coriolis effect, the narrative began to fall apart even further. I began to see things I didn't notice when I was in school, such as Coriolis effect is actually never calculated for, but is assumed to be a part of wind correction angle. Wind correction angle is one of the many calculations pilots of all kinds make while flying to correct against winds in whatever volume or section of air they're flying through, which it could be from any direction, and you're flying through it, so you have to compensate a certain angle into that wind to hold a straight line.
Interesting side note, I worked on aerostats for several years, and I always ask people who try to bring up gravity, well, how come my 4,000 pound, 74,000 cubic foot aerostat isn't getting pushed towards the ground? It weighs more than you do, which you believe gravity is pushing you down, right? Because these are some dense ass people. But how come the aerostat's not getting driven into the ground? It weighs more. It's definitely larger than the size of a house. It's more than size of most houses. So why isn't it getting driven to the ground? Well, that's because it's displacing less weight than the atmosphere or the medium that it's in. And I try explaining that. I don't know how many times you've probably posted something on this. I don't know how many times we're going to have to post something on this. But every time that little kid lets go of that helium balloon and starts crying.
Radar is simply another form of radio transmission. Radio includes anything within the range of the electromagnetic spectrum. Electromagnetic spectrum, also known as light. Radio is
the electromagnetic spectrum also, like the light.
Light, whether it's visible light or radio waves, which are not visible. When it comes to radio transmissions, there must be a transmitter and a receiver. There can be a reflector or a transmittal unit along the way.
I'm watching this video with you, but
in
I've
the
seen
end,
some of
there's
this
gotta
stuff.
be at least
So
a
interesting.
transmitter and a receiver. And in the case of radar transmits a signal and it bounces off a reflector, and then it comes back to the receiving station. Or it can go to other stations if they're set up in the network properly. Long story short, radar emits a signal, it bounces off something, and then it returns to a receiving unit. And
GPS, like people call it ground positioning system. More accurate to call it ground positioning system, but some people call it global positioning satellite. That's the new age pseudoscience people that say that.
Receiving unit maps that reflection accordingly. If there is no reflector, then there's no return signal, and then the object does not show up on the radar. For example, it's off the screen. Notice there's no curving around anything. It goes out in a straight line. Radio signals always travel in a straight line. So the transmitter sends the signal out to the target, bounces off, and it comes back in a straight line. Radar cannot travel over the curve, and hence radar is dependent on line of sight, direct beam from the transmission to the target, It reflects and it comes straight back. There is no curving around anything, thus is radar.
Also, radar works in straight lines. The radar is incapable of curving around a curve, picking up and bouncing back the reflection of what it's picking up. So if you can imagine a ship on the other side of the curve, we'll say 30 miles, 40 miles out, it sends out the radar beam. And the radar beam is supposedly curving around this ball, bouncing back, and then bouncing the reflection, curving back around to be picked up by the radar. That's not happening. It's flying out straight, and when it picks up something, it hits it back. It's not going around any curve. That's plain and simple. That can be looked up on your YouTube and see how radar waves work. They don't go around the curve. Every diagram shown will show you straight lines. They don't show you curved lines.
As we zoom out to look at the larger scope of things, once we verify that, we're able to zoom out over a large distance. Now, over this screen, at the time, I was like 18 or 19 years old, all right, when I was doing this job. I wasn't thinking about flat earth and any of this other shit. I was still indoctrinated and under the assumption that the earth is a spinning ball. I never thought about flat earth or anything like that, but I always thought it was weird that as I'm looking at this massive radar screen, I always used to think, how come we're looking at this and I can see, like, we're off of the coast of Argentina, for instance, right? Like, how is it that I can see this far out and it's not like over the horizon or curve, because it's so far? Like I said, we use a lot of these other link signals, and they're called links. They go by different names. I can't say the code names. Some of them I forgot. Some of them are, again, this is classified information.
I've been in Cessnas, I've been in Chinooks, I've been in Hercs, I've been in jets, I've been in helicopters, countless helicopters, like you name it. I've been in light armored vehicles, you know, all of that stuff. And I've worked with and coordinated operations with tankers, with engineers, with aviation assets, all of that stuff. Coriolis effects never factored in. It's also in my experiences and stuff like that, even working like as an officer, working as the second in command of Combat Support Company, which had reconnaissance, which also utilized, you know, like long distance surveillance and snipers and signals, long distance radio frequencies and bandwidths and whatever you want to call it, involved with those organizations.
I can't give any specifics on these, but some of the links that we use, not only do we speak to the actual ships and track them, but we speak to aircraft.
Yeah.
1,000, 20,000, 30 and higher, 30,000 feet and higher is what I'm saying. It's not just a matter that they're 30,000 feet directly. It's not like they're directly above the ship. This is what's interesting, is this aircraft could be 50, 60 miles away and 30,000 feet in the air. So you understand, like, the angle that you have to take to be able to track this aircraft from a ship that's moving on the water? Think about that for a second.
I served on board of a United States 688I fast attack nuclear submarine, and I can personally attest that we never constantly angled down during our submarine deployments. One of our longest transits went from the Gulf of Oman around the southern tip of Africa and back to Connecticut. We were underwater for almost 3 months straight. My job on board as a radioman meant that I spent a lot of time both in the radio room.
Also, because I was talking about ground towers, I've also talked about this. I like being redundant and to reiterate things because my videos are long, and so people usually don't get, you know, to these points. The higher you go up in elevation, the more electric and magnetic potential or energy there is, and that's why there's always been with the ground towers and things like that. They're high. The higher they are, like the more reach and the more ability to harness this electrical magnetic energy.
And in the control room. The control room is where they navigate and drive the submarine. I never once, in my 5 years active duty,
Good
heard
morning.
the officer of the deck or the diving officer give the order to consistently change the angle of the submarine to compensate for the curvature of the Earth. The primary task of the diving officer and the helms and plainsmen is to maintain the submarine as level as possible while in transit. If the Earth had any measurable curvature, I am certain we would not have been able to make this incredibly long transit without accounting for it.
With the military, I served 15 years, 1-5, and then within a year and a half, I incorporated Athena Incorporated, and was still working with government. As soon as I got out, people that were ex-special forces that owned companies, businesses, they knew I was out. People I worked with in the past, and they wanted me to work with them right away. So I did it pretty much immediately, and then incorporated and have top secret government clearance still, and but again, like with contracts and stuff like that, because of what I've been sharing, because of what I was sharing in my community, it was not being taken seriously or even looked at because of what our mainstream media narrative was, and people within cabinet that were exploiting us because they're lobbyists. They were actually believing these people, and what we were seeing as the experts. They were believing these people as well, even though I was sharing even like their links to these companies, these pharmaceutical companies, and links to criminality on so many different fronts, and still just not like unwilling to even consider it. And so yeah, over 20 years. I'm at over 20 years now, because in 2018, like I said, I incorporated, and I was at the top of the top, which it's unfortunate, because as soon as the pandemic came and I was sharing information about that, it just like my contracts were delayed at first because of the lockdowns and mandates. All these illegal measures that were put in place destroyed my company and my anyway, so many other things. Yeah. And then people with my community, like the more I was sharing stuff with them, like the more I was losing people, because they're like, nope, not believing this, not believing this. And it's just like, well, look at the fucking data. You're supposed to look at the data. And I'm hoping that this year things turn around, and they look at my content, especially on Rumble, and call me. Like, we need to get on this stuff.
And then the big one is given.
I didn't know if
the
the sound was on or
GPS
not.
auto corrects for it. And that sent me down yet another path. GPS auto corrects for it. If it's a satellite-based system, how is it correcting for spin if it's also spinning over the same body? And why are there large gaps in GPS coverage over large oceanic bodies?
So even since 2018, like even upon like releasing from the Canadian Armed Forces, I've worked as training coordinator for like a really like a private security company, a really big one that was also managing international contracts. And with them, I was not only doing the use of force instruction and security stuff and so many other courses for people within like even the LCBO security guards. I was teaching all of their use of force stuff and training stuff and security guards within this private security company. But I was also doing work with them and with so many other different groups of people, experts with like Global Affairs Canada and Search and Rescue and others, DART, where I was the training coordinator teaching the people that respond to natural and man-made disasters internationally. Like I was teaching the course, training them multiple days, course package, using so many different resources, but like the best course people will ever friggin' get. And there's even like a conduct after capture portion in there as well. Countless role players that have so many different skill sets and backgrounds that you wouldn't even believe, including people that were like undercover homicide detectives for like 35 plus years in like the hard friggin' places in Canada, and ex-special forces, like I was saying, and firefighters and nurses and medics and business owners, bodybuilders, models, ex-NASCAR drivers, like you friggin' name it. But again, because of not getting vaccinated, people refuse to hire me. and literally, and because of the lockdowns and mandates, not being able to do stuff in person. I've also done executive protection for the heads of the Bank of Canada, the governor and the senior deputy governor, and for Justin Trudeau, and for the head of the Toronto Raptors, and for countless others. The higher level executive protection stuff, not just not a bodyguard, like it's higher level stuff for the coordination piece. And I've done like advanced firearm instructions. I've done advanced driving instructions for like even like military police and peace officers and countless others, wildlife preservation officers. And that's again like just in this is why I need to get back in these freaking communities. And they need to hear me out with all this shit, right? Some people are reaching out more and wanting me to share stuff on Flat Earth, which I'm so happy about. It's exciting, and we'll see how that goes because it's just recent. It's literally just in literally the last 2-3 weeks, like I'm saying. And some people literally just in the last 24 hours.
Do they just turn them off? It's just not worthwhile. There have been enough aviation accidents at sea, very far from shore, that would say otherwise. And if you gave the American taxpayers, the ones funding these satellites that are supposed to track aircraft, the information that, well, we're just shutting them off because it's not worthwhile, those 3 or 4 jets full of hundreds of passengers just have to use other navigation methods such as dead reckoning, which is basically using a stopwatch and guessing to the next checkpoint, essentially. If you were to tell them that, they would be infuriated. So that could not be the case. Coverage was a problem. Even over large and non-densely populated areas, you would lose GPS coverage, even in jets at times. So this began to unravel the thread of satellites and satellite timing, and the fact that many reels of footage show these satellites being launched by balloon rather than by rockets, how the concept of these rockets doesn't even work to make it past the atmosphere, much less leave something in perfect geosynchronous orbit. I actually had the privilege of working a short time at a satellite manufacturing company in Northern California. Got to see the assembly and participate in the assembly of satellites, base-based satellites, or so they were said. There would be small bottles encased in these structures that were encased by another structure. The small bottles were the fuel cells. These fuel cells were incredibly small, smaller than a diver's tank in most cases, much smaller. And this was supposed to be all the fuel that the craft needed to run and operate, as most are not actually electric, they're becoming electric now, and sustain itself in a perfect orbit by just small bursts from its engine or its propulsion system.
But truth be told, I've been to many countries, done many things, all things aviation. I can say with absolute certainty, and I can attest, the plane does not dip nose down to follow the curvature of the Earth, ever. Matter of fact, most planes have an airfoil that are 3 degrees nose up in straight and level flight. And the reason that is simple. If the nose of the aircraft was at 0 degrees or level flying through the air, then it would porpoise, right?
And the thing that blows my mind,
violent, because some of the air would go over the nose and some of the air would go under the.
People till this day will claim that the Earth spins and it goes from they're claiming like spinning like west to east or clockwise, like whatever they want to allege with the spin and the speed and all of this stuff. And then when we say well then how can planes account for that? You know what I mean? And how are they able to go even faster speeds or slower speeds, whatever you want to call it, than the speed of the Earth? How are they able to land? Can you throw a marble on a disc when it's spinning really, really fast? And it land? No, it freaking flies off. And so how is this possible? And they say oh, it's because the plane's moving and everything else is moving with the Earth. And it's just well, what about when the plane's going in the opposite direction? And then it's and then people ghost you and block you and don't want to talk to you and call you names and you know.
And it would cause
whatever.
Nose to go down, up and down, which is literally like a porpoise or a dolphin out of.
And I'm even the things that are standing still, you're saying that they're moving with the planet and the clouds and the birds and the bees, where everything is just moving exactly with the spin of the fucking
that's
okay.
exactly what would happen.
Okay.
So it's the wings are designed when they are level, the nose is 3 degrees nose up.
The fact proven from multiple points that there is no Coriolis to the motion of the Earth. And I'm speaking from a pilot's perspective, also an engineer's perspective, because I obtained a degree as an engineer before I went to flight school. So I'm both a pilot and engineer at once. So number one, there is no rotation of the Earth, proven by the fact that a helicopter pilot can hover the aircraft indefinitely, motionless, above a single point of the Earth.
Yeah.
If the Earth were spinning, as soon as that aircraft left the ground, the Earth would spin out from under it. Now, somebody may say that the air of the atmosphere rotates along with the Earth, which is one of the most absurd concepts imaginable, because if that were the case, then all wind would travel with the Earth. There would be no alternating wind currents. When we know that the jet streams fly overhead, clouds move in multiple directions overhead, and a kite flying over the stationary Earth, the fact that a kite flies because of wind passing through, that proves that the Earth is...
So they're saying that even like, so what he's getting at, and just to be clear, like he's going to explain it better than me anyways, but even with like slightest of winds, like you can feel and you can see it and it impacts things. So like, how is that even possible? How is a lower speed force of any sorts possible when you have this like this force of incredibly like increased magnitude than that, like spinning it as at the equatorial area, like at 1,670 alleged kilometers per hour, whatever it is. Like, come on. Then how the fuck fudge would we feel a lower energy or force within that? Like, I hope this makes sense to people. And I just hope it makes sense to people.
That proves that the air does not move in unison with the Earth. Number two, airstrips do not rotate away from a landing aircraft. Anybody who's seen a pilot's view when an aircraft lands, well, the aircraft lands to a motionless airstrip. If the Earth were rotating, the pilot would have to turn to the angle at which the airstrip is rotating away and land at the speed of the airstrip, which is absurd, simply absurd. Airstrips do not rotate away from the aircraft, and on an east to west landing strip, if the aircraft is landing to the west, the airstrips do not land moving towards the airplane. That's insanity. Okay, simply stated.
If the Earth was a spinning ball, it is virtually impossible for a ship to be moving at 25 to 30 knots on this curved spinning ball while tracking an aircraft that's probably going 300 miles per hour, 50 to 100 miles away. Really, I mean, these like P3 aircrafts were pretty far and 20,000 feet in the air. It's just virtually impossible. It doesn't make sense. Again, at the time, I wasn't thinking like this, but looking back on the information that I had, I'm like, yeah, there's no way. There's no way that was done on a curved Earth. Literally, the only way that could work is if we are on a flat, stationary plane. We're cruising along. The boat is cruising along in the water. Like, think about it.
Oh my
like
God.
like a backyard swimming pool.
Like, this is what I mean. Like, anyone that's gonna like reference me to Wikipedia or to Netflix as proof of the globe Earth, we're just not on the same level. I never know what to do with that stuff. I honestly don't. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, are you kidding me? I'm like, you're not going to give me any scientific, any government data. You're not going to give me like any experiments conducted, no, any research done, any archive data. You're not like none of that. You're gonna direct me to a known propaganda, a known propaganda psyops, friggin' like whatever you want to call it, mainstream media friggin' brainwashing campaign. You're gonna direct me to that. Okay, so thank you for like setting me out to just be like this like innocent little bunny, you know what I mean? Going into a fucking lion cage. Like, go get the meat in the lion cage. It's like, go investigate. No. Nice try. Jesus. Netflix. Yeah, okay, when I do my scientific dissertations, when I was talking to the Ohio grad studies, whatever you want to call it, like, we weren't referencing Netflix. Unless it was to make fun of it. There's some good shows on Netflix. I'm not hating on it. But like there's like huge psyops propaganda. There's so much hidden symbology. It's not even hidden, right? Like if you read the esoteric books, you're gonna understand what's going on too. But like people giving me free, oh my God, and giving me Professor Dave, like not a real professor, but giving me Professor Dave. Like I'm not even attacking anyone who's watching this. If you've ever sent me anything from him, because like literally everyone has given me, anyone that like that wants to troll me on Flat Earth, they always give me Professor Dave stuff. and it's infuriating because like his work is so low level, ridiculous. And the alleged claims that he makes that like flat earthers believe and think, like, I'm like, no one thinks that. No one thinks that. What are you talking about? That's just stupid shit you made up. And that sounds ridiculous. And you know it sounds ridiculous so that you and your friggin' minions that are believing this shit can all like make fun of like non-existent beliefs and theories that you fucking made up. Why don't you spend that time actually doing some actual research? Like the easy thing is the curvature, 8 inches per mile squared. Do it. Instead of spending years arguing with me and others like me and Mike, do the friggin' the research. I'm trying to look at tabs, but I'm blinded by where the sun is right now. So, and of course, it's right by the camera too.
Pools.
All my tabs are like
pool filled up, right?
The top.
And then your ship, you put a little boat on the swimming pool, and then you put like a little fake aircraft in the air. Now, from that ship, you're able to see the aircraft. It doesn't matter
an
where
apple.
you are in
Oh
that
my
pool,
God.
you can track that aircraft. If you're
people giving me giving me articles from like CBC and Global, like for proof of stuff too. Like even with CTV, like I shared like another post about them saying that, oh, the unvaccinated can spread, like, sorry, the people that are vaccinated, like they're more at risk of getting COVID-19 if they go around unvaccinated people. All these friggin' lies, like CTV. And you're gonna give me that from CTV, who people were doing like 2 years ago even. And I'm like, oh, okay, you think that's gonna like convince me to it's bullshit.
on a spinning ball curve.
That's what you're
How
going
the
off
hell
of?
Can you track an aircraft
I'm sorry.
that could be in a position that's 100 to 200 miles away from you, 30,000 feet in the air from a different angle that's around a curve? It's impossible. There's no way that you could, there's no radio frequency that could track that.
I'd like to point out that I see now that I didn't see before is that you have a magnetic compass and you have a gyro on any ship. And I'm not talking about your little Crabberman show fishing boat, one of the deadliest cat. I'm talking about a real deep sea going, unlimited tonnage boat's going to have a gyro. And it is a big, huge box that sits usually behind the bridge or in the chart room. It's a big box and it's basically the gyro compass. Now, if you had two models, I guess, wouldn't you have to have one making the corrections, because it almost never matches the magnetic almost never matches the gyro. It's very rare that we're steering the same course. And they say it's due to deviation and variation is where you know, like the metals of the ship causes it to differ. And then you have the variation of the magnetic fields over the earth. I guess they change, you know, true north and magnetic north. But the way I look at it is, man, they got two different machines. One is a machine and one is from God. The way to get around the earth, God's not a dummy. He put the way to get around the earth with the compasses. If back in the day they had motorized vessels that can get them around, they would probably have got around a lot better.
So like the Netflix equivalent, it's like people saying like they're fully convinced that like friggin' genies exist, and they give you a friggin' Aladdin Disney movie as their fucking proof. And like legit, like, you know, like that gospel fact, scientific fact, Aladdin, boom, genies exist. Same shit. It's exactly the same.
But they were at the mercy of.
Don't tell me it's not.
It was like, oh, they didn't know their way, or you know, they were using the stars and stuff, and they, you know. So I just believe that the two compasses, the gyro compass that's electronic, and then our regular compass is because they are switching the ways, you know, the maps. There's two different ways to get around the earth. You're tricking us.
Here is another flat earth proof that I never noticed while I was on active duty, thanks to years of indoctrination. Periscope observations. When the submarine is at periscope depth and the observer is looking for ships on the horizon, they will start to see masts at about 8 to 9 miles, depending on atmospheric occlusion and sea state. The hull of the ships won't be visible until about 5 miles, depending on atmospheric occlusion and sea state. At 9 miles away, the target should be 26 feet behind the curve. But this isn't what's observed. My final flat earth point on submarines is with regard to the AN/WSN TAC-7 ring laser gyro that is used on board of U.S. Navy submarines. A typical gyroscope, like the ones used on board of an aircraft, is a device used for measuring or maintaining orientation and angular velocity. It is either a spinning wheel or disc with a counterweight in which the axis of rotation is free to assume any orientation by itself. When rotating, the orientation of this axis is unaffected by tilting or rotation of the mounting, according to the conservation of angular momentum. However, a ring laser gyro doesn't have any established weight. They use light as a point of reference. It spins up a disc that shoots out lasers, and it has a digital encoder that deciphers where the laser strikes inside of the gimbal system. No make-believe gravity required.
Let's just say we're like 30 miles away. These missiles can shoot much further than that. I can't give you the exact number, but say we're 30 miles away, okay? 30 miles is far. So from our ship, we can track on our little, we have like a missile projectile. It's like a radar, but it's a little bit different. It's specifically designed to track the missiles. You actually input the coordinates, latitude and longitude of where you want the missile to strike. Really, really high precision accuracy. Really accurate. We hit that launch and the missile, and it will hit that target 30 miles away, even longer than that. Now, here's the thing. Again, that's not possible on a curved Earth. These missiles are huge, 50 caliber project that are carrying massive amounts of explosives in them, okay? Each one of these missiles are probably worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So whenever you're lining up these missiles to shoot at targets that are 30 plus miles away, if the Earth is spinning, again, now think about this. We're not sitting like on land holding a gun, all right? So picture this. We're on a ship, like actually in the middle of the water, okay? And the missile is shooting off of the bow of the ship. So if the world is a spinning ball and we're on this curved Earth with water and we're spinning 600 miles per hour through infinite space, I'm pretty sure that it would be physically like it wouldn't even make any kind of sense on a physics type level to be able to shoot a missile from a spot in the water on a spinning ball to pinpoint accurately hit another spot.
And at night, we were going on one ship, on a military ship, and this is with night vision goggles, 50 miles, and these guys were on the bow. They were not even on the bridge where you'd be 100 foot up. They were on the bow, which is barely probably 40 feet off the water's edge. So these guys, and they have the latest state of the art. This was in 2015. 2015, they had state of the art, what do they call them? Night vision goggles. So these things are capable of seeing that far if we live on a plane. You can't deny it. It was so obvious, but not to everyone else. I guess the programming's harder than other people. So they don't want to hear it. But over the years, I have learned the model. I know the model like the back of my hand. I can show proofs. I have ammo now. So when I go out there and I tell somebody, hey, that's impossible, and I'm talking to a third mate or a second mate who's an officer who went to college, meaning they paid for their education. Because when you pay for your education and you're making a handsome salary on it, you can't be wrong. How could I be wrong? I'm making a salary. They're paying me. I paid for this career. Everything's working great in my life. You are obviously wrong. All the math works. So with that, it's hard. But when you stump them and you start showing them stuff, it's hard for them to say. And then they start saying stuff like, oh, well, what does it matter anyways? I don't care.
And there is the 8 inches per mile squared. But you guys can't look at it three-dimensionally. It is two-dimensional. It is the amount of deviation that's required for you to come back inward. If you are walking east from north, meaning you are going around north equidistantly, and you walked in a straight line east 1 mile, you're going to have to deviate 8 inches back to the left to get back on the equator, right? Look at it on the flat Earth map, and clearly it makes sense. If you walked 1 mile in a straight line east, you have to deviate 8 inches after each mile to stay on the equator. The 8 inches per mile squared is a real measurement, if in fact we consider the equator to be a real place, a real location, ever, always.
In 2015, I came across YouTube suggestions for flat Earth videos. My first reaction was to laugh off. After seeing flat Earth videos in one of my favorite channels, I decided to watch one. When I came across a flat Earth map, which I had never seen before, it immediately sparked me to look at that flight route, Rio, Los Angeles, Sydney. And I could then understand why the Brazilian soccer team went to Los Angeles and then to Australia for the tournament. The Earth is flat, no doubt about it. The following weeks and days were followed by more research and disbelief. I had been a NASA fanboy my whole life, paying 2 visits to NASA's Johnson Space Center in Huntsville, Alabama, besides spending so much money in science and science fiction related documentaries, movies, merchandise, etc. What a waste of time.
I also tell mates about they lay down and we use all our charting is done on flat maps, straight lines. They never draw a curved line. Every line is straight lines everywhere we go on a flat map. And I try to point it out to them. And what they tell me is, Mr. Mercator has put all that in there for you. It's all equated in there for you. You don't have to worry about it. All the curvature calculations for it and everything's figured right into the map. So the straight lines and everything are actually bending somehow. I don't know. So these are just the proofs that I see. Along with, you can see the corpuscular rays are much betterly observed out at sea because it's nothing. It's like a desert. And so you can see the sun like a flashlight just shining down in a cone. Everywhere. If there's a little bit of clouds are right, it looks like a cone. And I point it out all the time to these guys. And I get them thinking, but the programming goes hard on people. And if you're not ready to wake up, well, you're not ready to wake up. You'll just have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You'll be back in the illusion before you know it.
The narrative began to fall apart. I would continue studying and finding that what I fear to be true is reality, that we have been lied to about just about everything. Upon researching military history and then military training and speaking with military gunners in both the Army and the Marine Corps that I know personally, I would ask them about Coriolis effect. And it was always assumed that, yeah, we compensate for the Earth being, a curve, that it would drop. We calculate for the Earth curvature. But even upon asking and having them look into their materials further and my own personal study, again, it found to be an assumed truth with no actual basis in reality, that they would calculate bullet fall based upon angular velocity, drop, friction, amongst other things. And curvature was supposed to be just corrected along with it, just like flying, wind correction angle corrected for Coriolis effect.
I've done many of them personally. I've flown more than 1,070 hours in both helicopters and airplanes. And I will tell you factually that aircraft meet their checkpoints, they take off, they meet their checkpoints, and they land exactly as planned on a flat stationary map. No pilot, I say again, no pilot has ever accommodated for the rotation of the Earth when planning flights and takeoff to checkpoints along the way, and then landing. Pilots can plan so well that they can take off and land hundreds of miles away down to within 30 seconds of their planning because the Earth simply does not rotate.
A waypoint would be like this. Like, let's say we're out in the middle of the water and we want to hit a target that's like directly to our west, 15 miles away. But that target is able to track our missile coming at them. We don't want that target to know where the missile's coming from. So we can put in waypoint. And a waypoint would be like putting a point out like 20 miles east, and then another point like 15 miles north, and then another point like 10 miles south of that, and then put in our target. You see what I'm saying? So the missile doesn't go directly from the ship to the target. The missile will actually fly to the latitude and longitude of the waypoints that are put in, and then it will curve from there, and it will hit all the waypoints and then attack the target. How is that possible on a spinning Earth? If the Earth is moving at 600 something miles per hour or whatever they say it is, there's no way that missile could stay. There's no way that missile would be able to keep track. Do you understand what I'm saying? At least that's how I'm looking at it. It may be a little bit harder to visualize if you actually weren't seeing it the way that I would see it. there or understanding and putting in the coordinates or seeing how this actually worked out. But I'm telling you, like, from my perspective, that is one of the things that makes it virtually impossible to accept the globe as this, well, it's a fake lie. It's a theory. It's garbage is what it is.
So y'all think the Earth is a ball. Y'all think it's spinning through outer space. And I said, believe in the green alien.
Well, actually, the Earth is flat. Here I'll give you facts, all the math, science, and all of that. Whatever you need to believe. Come on, can't you see that a submarine couldn't use a periscope, nor a plane use a gyroscope? A Huey doesn't adjust for the Coriolis or sniper looking down the scope. This is all hard to take in and hard to cope, but I hope that I've given enough rope to explore the rabbit hole that our Earth is not a ball and it's not spinning through outer space. If someone wants to prove me wrong, please give me a name and we can debate it all day, anytime, man, with real test measurements and evidence. Stop lying to world nations. We have real science to back our observations. Don't believe in the indoctrination of the people, cause they don't want you to believe that the earth is level. Don't believe in the indoctrination of the people, cause they don't want you to believe that the earth is level. Dig deeper, be a rebel, then dig deeper than a shovel. Keep your mind level, it's lighten the curve and lighten the herd. Give the truth what it deserves, tell about what we actually observe. Like a boat going out of sight, if you get your zoom and focus right, it'll come back into the light. Just use a laser beam and you will see that water never bends but always finds a flat resting position. 71% water can't make up a ball or a pair. So let me make this clear and get it into your ear. You're in great fear of stepping out of the box. They're keeping food stamps in our socks. They are the slyest of the fox in a controlled illusion of evolution. That's nothing made everything in no proof of creation. In this pseudoscience indoctrination, no meaningful salvation. But let's believe in gravity with no proof of how it picks and chooses what can rise and what can fall on this crazy thing we call a spinning ball. Don't believe the indoctrination of the people. They don't want you to believe the earth is level. Don't believe the indoctrination of the people. They don't want you to believe the earth is level, level, level. Let me give you something else to measure. Don't worry, it's my pleasure. If you want to vacuum more pressure, you must have a container, and that's a no-brainer. But since we believe the universe is on a roller coaster ride, even when Polaris is in the same place every night and has been for thousands of years, has the heavens work like gears, telling us time and the years like a big machine. The heliocentric model is just a drink backed by money and based on influence theories, never providing hard evidence except for CGI and camera trickery of my natural senses in our school systems. But flat earth brings meaning to your existence like a period at the end of a sentence. Don't believe in the indoctrination of people. They don't want you to believe that the earth is level.
When it comes to a deception this big, it's hard to dismiss. And for the people that say, I don't see how this would affect me either way, you don't know. It's like telling me about Argentina when you've never been there. Or it's like telling me about owning a Corvette when you've never driven one. You haven't experienced it. And if you have been through the Flat Earth Awakening, you know how it would affect you. This quite possibly may be the biggest awakening of mankind. Think about it. If you believe in this mass fallacy, you've been robbed of some senses and you don't even realize it. You don't trust your sense of touch or feel. You don't trust your sense of sight. You've been told the earth wobbles, spins, and orbits, but you don't feel a thing. You've been told that sunsets can't exist on a flat and stationary plane, but you don't understand the vanishing point of the law of perspective. After it's possible to understand and decode a mass deception, it becomes a lot easier to understand other lies. It opens your eyes and raises your discernment. So when it comes to lies like JFK, the moon landing, chemtrails, fluoridation, 9/11, etc. This is one of the most important factors of life I've ever been awakened up to. If it's possible to open your mind to this, your receptors will connect so much faster and stronger than you've ever experienced in your life. Understanding the ground you walk on every day and the luminaries that go over your head every day, which I still don't understand all of its entirety, can change your life forever. Knowing you are specifically, intelligently, and uniquely designed so you know mentally, physically, and spiritually your vibration, energy, and frequency of life. So don't act like this doesn't matter. We've been lied to on a mass caliber. We can prove we live on a flat and stationary plane with observable, repeatable, testable experiments with data, hypothesis, and conclusions without depending on blind faith, indoctrinated, religious, theoretical, nihilistic, opinionated philosophies. That's the difference.
Is it possible that almost everything that we were taught from the time of our innocent adolescent time as children to the completion of our chosen path of studies in college was not only incorrect, but was part of an educational doctrine of spiritual disconnectedness from what truth is and what our reality in the world that we occupy today? What if I told you that this is but a small capsule in a puzzle that was well planned and engineered by a world control system to propagate a catalog of theoretical studies and sciences that in some cases have never been proven to this very day, nor will it ever be proven, ascertained as fact. Humanity appears to have been hoodwinked into a dumb state of who we are, where did we come from, and are we unique in God's creation concerning a geocentric world, or are we in a heliocentric world based on theoretical studies by a Jesuit astronomer named Nicholas Copernicus? He suggested this in 1543. His works were not released until after he died, because he himself didn't believe in the spin ball theory either, that is taught still today at the highest levels of education. On my book, which is the Pharisee Plan Agenda that has gone on for 474 years, seems to be threatened to become full disclosure of the biggest lie in the history of mankind that is kept by the world's oldest secret society called the Freemasons. The very uniqueness of humankind was spelled out correctly by our Creator that the earth was the center of the universe, and that He created the sun and the moon as well as the stars and the constellations that revolve around the earth, with Polaris being the north magnetic pole fixed star. How could space possibly exist when you and I have never been in our entire lives seen a real photo of what our own world looks like?
Max must constantly deal with the stigma and ridicule of being the crazy flat earther from friends and family, and bombardment of typical questions like, why would they lie? How could so many people keep such a big secret? And what does the shape of the earth even matter anyway? The elusive curve presents all the main arguments for a flat earth and solid arguments against a spinning ball earth in a fun and realistic story format, recommended for all flat earthers and curious-minded people alike. Join Max on his journey as he attempts to convince his friends that the shape of the earth is not what they know, while he plans for a mission to discover more land on Earth with his ambitious and somewhat crazy plan to acquire a high-altitude pseudo-satellite to prove the shape of the Earth one way or another.
The Globers, definitely scientifically, we're looking at flat earthers have some very, very, very valid points according to those three examples. You got it, brother. Anything else?
That about answers my question. Quite a lot to take in. I've taken some notes. Thank you. Thank you again.
You're welcome, sir. Any questions? I'll be here for a while. Contact me anytime.
All right. God bless.
All the best. God bless.
Yo invito a la gente a que por lo menos sea un poco más abierta de mente hacia estos temas, porque
I went
la
for
verdad
a
es que esto está
20-minute
fuerte.
run
Se vienen tiempos
with my dogs. It's cold out.
y debemos de estar conscientes de que el sistema nos está manipulando de una manera muy, muy grande. Entonces, pues, vamos a ver qué pasa.
That began my journey down the flat earth. And since that point, I've only found more and more voices, more and more educated people, educators, professionals who are beginning to shed light on this subject in ways that I can only begin to imagine. But I'll never forget the day that I realized my plane wasn't falling around the globe, that I could look out the cockpit window, 185 degrees plus field of vision at 40,000 feet, and not see one iota of drop, but nothing but a flat, beautiful, motionless plane. The assumed calculations that we made that were compensating for Earth rotation were just a part of a calculation based upon wind speed and the angle we had to hold in order to fly against that wind and go in a straight line to our destination. It's one of the most freeing truths I've ever experienced, because in some small way, the idea that these other conspiracy theories and things we've been lied to
Joshua
are
Silva.
true. But this biggest one is the biggest truth of all. We've been lied to about everything. It means we can start over. We can start again. At this time, at this point in our history, we are uniquely positioned to make that change.
And if I can make one statement to the people out there, it's simply this. That's it. That it's level. You cannot fall off the edge of an in-ground pool. It is level. Where you put your feet in the water in France, it's the same height that you're going to put your feet in New Jersey and Brazil. Do some research. This is not the only thing out there that needs to be researched, unlearned, and relearned. The Department of Education, founded by Rockefeller in 1908, did a good job of proving that the mode of ignorance that he calls his education board, you are the proof it's working. The mode of ignorance widens every day. It gets bigger and bigger every day because people keep believing what they spit out. Unlearn, thinking outside the box. The box is the cap that you got at graduation. So understand that for the first 18 years of your life, you didn't learn the truth about anything. You were simply told, and you got a reward for repeating it. Now it's time to think for yourself. It's time to do research and do your own testing. Be your own white coat.
Knowing the earth is flat has placed me in sync with our creator, his creation, our hidden past,
My eyelashes
and with the
froze when I
future
was
we hope
outside.
to build. A future where we should not have an organization called United Nations
Yeah.
governing the world. And there is no globe.
The United Nations has the flat Earth logo on it. You know.
There should be no globalization. This is my message to all of you. Peace.
My message to the people is that if you're watching this documentary and it strikes a chord with you, research it. Find out more about it. So my message is research it. Get all the ammo you can, because if you try and go out and tell your family member or friends or coworkers, and you try and tell them this, hey, that, they're going to laugh at you. And if you don't have the ammo to defend it or the right content to show or to start a kindle a fire with somebody's interest, if you don't have that, you're going to get laughed. I made the mistake of when I just knew it right when I seen that video. I said, okay, it makes so much sense. I knew it right away. I went and tried to tell everybody before I knew. I just blurted out little proofs. Airplanes don't dip their nose. The water lies, and they'd hit me with some of that science stuff, that pseudoscience, and I couldn't defend it. and I would look like a fool. And then when I have the knowledge, it's harder to defend it because they've already don't take me serious. But now I've gained such a knowledge on it and such what you would call ammo that I can defend it in a way that you're going to get one of these reactions. Well, what does it matter if it's round or flat? My life doesn't change, doesn't matter. Either way, that's how you know that you're strong.
The people that say like, what does it matter? These are the people that they don't want to get proven wrong, especially if it's on live TV. So like, but I hate the fact that like, oh, it doesn't matter. I don't really care. It's because like they don't want to make it look like if they're in the truther community, especially they don't want to make it look like they're getting truths. And I don't understand why, because I'm so open, and so are other people like Mark Sargent, open to getting other people on that are actual experts or that can also explain things and bring more to the table. And because it just reinforces the argument.
Striking a chord. Their ego doesn't have anywhere else to go. So from there you can work on them. But like I said, learn the model, learn to defend the flat earth model before you tell your coworkers, loved ones, or anybody, for that matter that you don't know, because people you think that you know well are going to look at you like you're crazy. Unfortunately, that's due to the programming, and everybody believes one thing, so how dare you believe another? You got to fall in line.
So if you're able to actually like open up your mind, look at things objectively, allow yourself to break free from the indoctrination bullshit that you were taught, you'll feel more free. You'll see the world differently. You'll love more deeply and compassionately. You'll appreciate life more. That's how I lived my life a couple years ago. Honestly, I can tell you this. I just hope and pray with all my heart that, as the years go on, this is probably not something I'll see in my lifetime. But, as my children grow older and my children's children, as the generations go on, the truth will start to emerge. And it is starting. I mean, it's incredible,
this year.
That so many people are starting to really awaken. But, 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now, hopefully we can break free of the chains of indoctrination and really see the world for what it is and actually appreciate it and love the world and love each other. I think if we all understood that there is a creator, people would be less inclined to be so abusive toward each other and the earth.
Exactly.
That's my big message for the people. Just think for yourself. At the end of the day, just be a good person. Don't be so quick to just believe something and stand.
That's why I say like people blame people that are pretending to be affiliated with certain religious organizations or occult organizations or esoteric organizations, or even like the mysticism schools, the alchemical schools. They're not like anyone that actually understands like the closer reality to the world, and the fact that this is a divine, intelligently created cosmos, and there absolutely is a higher level consciousness, a God creator, at least one, that created this world. Like the people that are harming people, willingly and knowingly exploiting people for their own benefit and profit. These are not people that know the reality of the world, like people like me or the people listening to this channel with an open mind. Like they would never do the things that they do. I hope that makes sense. It takes good, noble people, educated people, people with wisdom and experience and all that stuff to be able to lead. And because we think about humanity, we think about the resources, we think about nature, we think about the earth, this collective consciousness, that we're all connected, that it's a contained environment, that we have to take care of the earth, all of that stuff. Like we understand this. And people that are in government right now at all levels, in all areas, like there are perverted, deviant, unethical, immoral, uneducated, inexperienced people that are getting paid a lot of money and no one's doing anything about it. And again, this has to be peaceful, but like they need to start getting arrested.
And by that belief, just because it was taught to you at a
They
young
need to start
age,
getting
question
subpoenaed.
it.
They need to start getting charged. They need to start getting investigated. They need to start getting removed from office.
Make sure it makes sense.
Easy.
In closing, I'd just
Pain
like to
free.
say that
Easy.
these are my own personal experiences. I never ask anyone to simply just believe everything I'm saying. In fact, please don't. That's how we've gotten into this whole mess to begin with, by blindly following others who say they've already done the research for you.
Those people are dangerous.
You allow deceptions to occur. Please do your own research and test all things.
all space agencies are part of the cover-up because they are also Freemasons. It is my consensus that space is fake, and NASA was set up this deception and even admit that images of Earth are composites and computer-generated images. Since 1958, NASA has literally force-fed us to and continue their trickery, sorcery, wizardry, and being only God of oneself, yet cannot get high enough altitude to provide humanity with one single photo of what the very shape of our world is. I believe strongly in the very senses that God gave all of us. And instinctively, our senses are 99% correct. And my book will help those awakening sheep remove the dark shades from this massive deception. And for those who are unwilling or unable to think past their noses, then those sheep will remain asleep. My book is part of the Great Awakening from pseudoscience that has put man living in a Newtonian world of Einstein physics, ruled by Frankenstein logic. Game is over. Consciousness shift of stupidity because of poisonous indoctrination to separate your soul and reality from truth. The knowledge of hold tight folks. A real awakening.
That's why I'm looking to see if there's any more scientific stuff in it. It's a good video. Great video. Before I take off, I just want to go through some other things. So I know this is a long video again. Dave McGowan, moon landing hoax, waning the moon doggy, audio and text from Freedom Flix.
Not use one ship alone, but a minimum of 3. Each rocket ship would be taller than the New York's Empire State Building. Almost.
I'm just going to give it a bit.
Wagging the Moon Doggy, Part 1, by Dave McGowan. As read from the Center for an Informed America's website, which is centerforaninformedamerica.com. Follow the tab for Wagging the Moon Doggy under Features, I believe, and you can read along as well. Thank you to Dave, who passed last year after a very brief but tragic battle with small cell lung cancer. Prolific researcher, voracious reader. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Wagging the Moon Doggy, Part 1, by Dave McGowan. It is commonly believed that man will fly directly from the Earth to the Moon, but to do this, we would require a vehicle of such gigantic proportions that it would prove an economic impossibility. It would have to develop sufficient speed to penetrate the atmosphere and overcome the Earth's gravity, and, having traveled all the way to the Moon, it must still have enough fuel to land safely and make the return trip to Earth. Furthermore, in order to give the expedition a margin of safety, we would not use one ship alone, but a minimum of 3. Each rocket ship would be taller than the New York's Empire State Building, almost a quarter mile high, and weigh about 10 times the tonnage of the Queen Mary, or some 800,000 tons. Wernher von Braun, father of the Apollo space program, writing in Conquest of the Moon. I can see all of you scratching your heads out there, and I know exactly what it is you're thinking. Why are we taking this detour to the moon? It all began a few months ago when I became very busy at my day job, as well as with family drama, with what turned out to be a very time-consuming side project, all of which made it increasingly difficult for me to carve out chunks of time to work on the remaining chapters in the Laurel Canyon series. Over the next 2 months or so, I pretty much lost all momentum and soon found it hard to motivate myself to write, even when I could find the time. That happens sometimes. Though it sounds rather cliche, writer's block is a very real phenomenon. There are many times when I can sit down at the keyboard and the words just flow out of my head faster than I can get them down on the page. But there are also times when producing just one halfway decent sentence seems to be a near impossible task. This was one of those times. Don Knotts gets taken to court and sued for slander in The Ghost and Mr. Chicken, and don't try to pretend like you've never seen it, because we both know that you have. He goes into the court and a character witness is called, and the paltry 3,000 tons, about 0.004% of the size that the principal designer of those very same Saturn rockets had previously said would be required to actually get to the moon and back. primarily due to the unfathomably large load of fuel that would be required. To put that into more earthly terms, the U.S. astronauts today travel no further into space than the distance between the San Fernando Valley and Fresno. The Apollo astronauts, on the other hand, traveled a distance equivalent to circumnavigating the planet around the equator 9.5 times, and they did it with roughly the same amount of fuel that it now takes to make that 200-mile journey, which is why I want NASA to build my next car for me. I figure they'll only have to fill the tank once. Should be good for the rest of my life. But wait, you say. NASA has a very solid evidence of the validity of the moon landings. They have, for example, all of that film footage shot on the moon and beamed live directly into our television sets. I have to mention that transmitting live footage back from the moon was another rather innovative use of 1960s technology. More than 2 decades later, we would have trouble broadcasting live footage from the deserts of the Middle East. But in 1969, we could beam that stuff back from the moon with nary a technical glitch. As it turns out, however, NASA doesn't actually have all that moonwalking footage anymore. Truth be told, they don't have any of it. According to the agency, all the tapes were lost back in the late 70s, all 700 cartons of them. As Reuters reported on August 15, 2006, quote, the U.S. government has misplaced the original recording of the first moon landing, including astronaut Neil Armstrong's famous "one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Armstrong's famous moonwalk, seen by millions of viewers on July 20, 1969, is among transmissions that NASA has failed to turn up in a year of searching. Spokesman Gray Hautaloma said, quote, we haven't seen them for quite a while. We've been looking for over a year and they haven't turned up. In all, some 700 boxes of transmissions from the Apollo lunar missions are missing. Given that these tapes are allegedly documented on an unprecedented and unduplicated historical event, one that is said to be the greatest technological achievement of the 20th century, how in the world would it be possible to lose, quote unquote, 700 cartons of them? Would not an irreplaceable national treasure such as that be very carefully inventoried and locked away in a secure film vault? And would not copies have been made? And would not those copies have also been securely tucked away somewhere? Come to think of it, would not multiple copies have been made for study by the scientific and academic community? Had NASA claimed that a few tapes or even a few cartons of tapes had been misplaced, then maybe we could give them the benefit of the doubt. But perhaps some careless NASA employee, for example, absentmindedly taped a Super Bowl over one of them. Does it really seem at all credible to claim that the entire collection of tapes has gone missing? All 700 cartons of them? The entire film record of the alleged moon landings? Some of you are probably thinking that everyone has seen the footage anyway, when it was actually broadcast live back in the 60s and 70s. We're on NASA's website, we're on YouTube, or numerous television documentaries, but you...
So more moon landing stuff. You can take a look at that channel to watch the whole video. I'm not in a big rush to go because I already let the dogs out earlier before my video earlier this morning, and then I just took them out for like a run. It's usually a walk. It usually takes longer than 20 minutes, but I was booking it, and they both went potty or whatever you want to call it. So like that's the end state. Here, is this the one? I wanted to bring this up too about Saudi Arabia's mega smart city NEOM, the Line A prestigious project with a dark side. It's only 2 minutes.
Countless governments and companies have taken a stab at building a city of the future. There's Songdo in South Korea, the Alphabet-funded Quayside project in Toronto, which was abandoned in May of last year. And both Singapore and Barcelona sprawling outward from a central location, they would be built vertically and arranged, well, in a line, hence the name. Even though the vision for the city stretches 170 kilometers, it would do away with cars entirely and instead be connected by high-speed rail that would travel the entire length in just 20 minutes. And each individual community would be largely self-contained so that almost anything you could need, be it a school, a doctor, or a quick meal, would be only a 5-minute walk away. The government says the line will run on 100% clean energy and make extensive use of sensors and AI to manage the city's services. And all of this is supposed to be nestled in the pristine natural landscape of the Tabuk province with minimal impact on the environment.
That's a nice area, though.
Now the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has revealed grandiose renders of what the city will look like to match the grandiose plans. The line is envisioned as a giant glass and mirrored wall, 170 kilometers long, 200 meters wide, and 500 meters tall. That's taller than the Empire State Building. It would have greenery stretching along the top, and open air ventilation system to help maintain an ideal.
Even just with the glass, the mirror alone, like the glass, like how many birds are going to be impacted by that? How many animals are going to be impacted by this? Lots. To say that there's going to be zero carbon emissions, fuck, like what? Like who are these people? And even with like the sun glare on the mirrors and stuff like that, like this is a possibility of being like a fire hazard. Like there's just so many different things. I have questions.
Climate year round, and it would house up to 9 million people. Now, the line is just one part of Saudi Arabia's controversial $500 billion NEOM megacity project. For one, the so-called virgin land that the government is building NEOM on is...
So these 15-minute cities are they're trying to replace that because they already have parking lots. People that pay for parking and malls and stuff like that, like and around hospitals and around parking, like this is all a scam. Like this real estate has been bought and paid for generations ago. All the money that you're putting in, it's going largely to people that are not even Canadian, and a friggin' scam. And like with the malls and stuff like that too. Like this is what this is. They're literally building these 15-minute cities, like I've been talking about for years, and they're going to be exploiting us. They're going to be exploiting resources. It's not going to be a good thing. They always make it seem like it's going to be so beautiful, but it ends up being dystopian. Just like look what's going on with California.
Surprisingly,
the first time in California history, they're actually going lower in numbers because so many people are leaving now because it's a fucking mess.
Not all that virgin. It is the ancestral and current home of many people, including members of the Hawatat tribe, who are being forced from their homes for what many see as a vanity project that won't amount to much in reality. Those who have dared to speak out against the government's plans or refuse to give up their controversy has even led to some commercial partners pulling out of deals like Riot Games, which had signed on NEOM to sponsor the League of Legends European Championship. Backlash from the gaming community caused that to quickly unravel. Now, even if NEOM is eventually built and lives up to its lofty promises, there will still be plenty of more cause for concern. The line is expected to be loaded with countless sensors, cameras, and facial recognition technology that, in such a confined space, could push government surveillance to almost unthinkable levels. Now, that would be troubling in any nation, but in a country like Saudi Arabia, where homosexuality is outlawed, LGBTQ people are persecuted, and women hold almost no rights, it's downright terrifying.
Yeah, women hold basically no rights. Even people coming from other places, other countries visiting, have to be aware of that. Like even drinking rules and stuff like that. Like especially with women, can't drive. Like it's maybe now like that's all. Anyway. I think now recently in the last couple of years, like women can drive, but it's still not something that's condoned or really done all that much. Like there's still people that are pushing against it.
Fine.
Yeah, there's just a lot of talk about it. Anyway, I will leave it at that. There's so many things I can discuss, but I won't. I'm just responding to Bill Blair again, who's our Minister of National Defense, who on X social media platform bragging again about like these millions of dollars, multi-millions of dollars that's going to Ukraine for military equipment, and I'm just asking like how much money, how much of a cutback, how much of a kick or cut is he getting of that money? And like, does he know that it's like a money laundering scheme? Does he know that this money is not going on the front lines? Do you know that this is a proxy war? That's it's not benefiting anyone except for the people that have shares and stocks in these companies and operate these companies. Yeah, and Bill Blair even today, and we can email him all we want on his government issued fucking email address that he's a public servant supposed to respond to. And can't say he's busy. It's not like the 3 to 5 business days not responding. Years. Okay, like government should be like 3 to 5 years. I'll get back to you. You know what I mean? 3 to 5 business days is enough. 3 to 5 years, like business years. Are you mad? And people call his public issued, government funded phone and in his office, like no one answers. Or if they do, it's a lackey that doesn't care, very rude, dismissive. Oh, we'll pass it on. We'll pass the message on. We'll pass the message on. Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah, so any day now, I'm just waiting for a call. I will leave it at that, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.